Look, I will start. This is a big moment for the podcast, and I'm not talking about the 1,000 subscribers that we have on YouTube. I'm not talking about the almost 10,000 listeners and watchers we have per week on this podcast. I'm not talking about the over 200 patrons we have on Patreon. All beautiful things, and we absolutely love each and every one of you here at BackChat. Don't we, Dan?
We do, absolutely.
I'm talking about the fact that I'm about to eat a fillet of fish to start this episode, a FOF, if you may.
And not just the fillet of fish, you're doubling it up.
I mean,
We got you the double.
so we got the double. It's not a fillet of fish. It's a filet of fish, isn't it? Isn't it?
Someone tried to be a bit fancy with the pronunciation.
What's it called?
I go the fillet. Just
You
keep
just
it
said fillet.
fillet, yeah.
Filet of fish.
Yeah, fillet of fish, yeah.
All right. So if anyone who's been listening is tuning in, that's what we're doing off the top here. So Dan's going to keep us running through the podcast while I try to keep the vomit out of my mouth as I eat this double fillet of fish. And why am I eating this?
Because, all right.
I'm going to start eating.
Yeah, go for it. So you went the double, which is
genuinely wish me luck. Everybody who's listening or watching, good God.
So the great thing about the fillet is that the patty is usually off center, which is a great thing to
Why
always
is that?
look forward
Because
to recenter it. Maybe just to make it look a bit.
Is it meant to be off?
I don't know, just always is.
I've never had a fillet of fish.
There you go.
I've got to talk you through it a bit. There's cheese on it. I didn't know there was cheese.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't say that with
steamed bun.
excitement.
Yeah. So basically, late last week, Thursday-ish, you said on our Instagram, you said, we need to get to 1,000 YouTube subscribers. We're very close. We're about 30 or 40 off. You sort of put it out as a challenge.
I mean, in fairness, it's not very close. Like 30 or 40 away. It's taken us, I don't know, like 4 months to get to 1,000. So 40 is a big jump.
Yeah, it's significant. And everyone rallied around the situation.
I didn't think it was going to happen, is what I'm trying to say.
I knew.
It wasn't like there was 2 subscribers we needed and we just needed mum and dad to sign up. Like, there was a fair few that needed to get around it. And I thought, I'll just throw it. I'll throw it out.
Yeah.
I'll eat a fillet of fish if we get there.
Yeah. And what you're about to do is embark on the double.
I'm having a bite right now.
Yeah, have a bite. And so we did. We got to the 1,000. I think we're obviously over the 1,000 now. I think we might be like 1,010. And Will was speechless because it's just blowing his mind that for so long you've rallied against this meal.
I just had a mouthful. I've just swallowed it. Coming here tonight, I knew that this is what was going to be happening, and I really haven't. I had an open mind. I thought,
do you mind if I just start on mine? Because of course I got one.
Are you going to have one?
Yeah, I got one here.
I mean, I really had an open mind in terms of the quality. I mean, you've talked it up, and it's a bit of banter. And I say, how disgusting fillet of fish, yada, yada, yada. And I thought, I'll have a bite. I'll get into it. I'll enjoy it.
So good.
I'll give it. Not only is it dry, not only does it, not taste like fish, as I've been saying, even though I've never tasted one. The tartare sauce, is that what it is? Tartare sauce? Mm-hmm. It's come out of a tub that's clearly been in the fridge for about 3 months. It tastes absolutely disgraceful. I've got 2 of these things in here as well. They're cut into perfectly square sizes. I can't get the taste out of my mouth. It is just a horrible experience. Everything that I've said over the past 2 months has been completely solidified in my mind. It's just, it's not well.
So it's funny you mentioned the dryness. I think that's why they do the steamed bun, just to help with the moisture of it and the tartare.
It's not part of the deal you get to eat one. That's enough from you. Okay, people don't want to hear us eating fillet of fishes. Stop eating that. Please get it off now. Do not put it up on the table.
I'll return to you later.
It's just disgraceful. I'll finish it. I'll finish it as I said I'd do.
Yep.
Do you understand why you can't eat a fillet of fish? I'm eating it. People aren't going to sit here and listen to fillet of fish eating. It's disgraceful.
We actually, went deep into the pockets and got Charlie an Indy one. Charlie, you've just had some. Have you had a bite yet?
Yeah, I just have. I'm still trying to kind of mentally work through it.
Yep.
My first reaction was the buns are so wet. Yeah, and then the second reaction was the fish is so dry. It's an unpleasant sandwich.
Is that why the buns are wet? To make up for the dryness in fish? I mean, this is not fish. There's no way this is fish. It's flaky.
Yep. Yeah, Indy's box is still closed over there. You haven't opened your fillet of fish. So hopefully you'll get a taste of that soon.
I'm going to soldier on and try another bite. I'll give it a second chance.
Please do.
How was roaming? No, okay, you had another bite. Please stop. Everyone needs to stop eating fillet fishes. That isn't forced. to eat a fillet of fish. I am forced to eat one. No one enjoys them.
Smashing through that though. I've never seen.
Oh,
you
I
eat
have to,
something
mate. What do you
quicker.
think? I'm going to sit here and have little nibbles at it? And I need to eat it and get it out of my way so I can host this podcast.
Yep.
I said I'd do it. I'm going to eat it. And I won't eat another one again.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So
the argument's over. It's disgraceful. There's no way this is seafood, let alone fish.
yeah, I'm not giving you your money though. As a person who's part of this podcast, you're out of that agreement that I'll give anyone their money for not being. And you didn't pay for it either, so I did.
Let me finish it, and then I'll...
Yep. Okay. So yeah, we did get over 1,000 YouTube subscribers. If you aren't subscribed, maybe if we get to 2,000, you'll have another one. Maybe that could just every 1,000 subs.
Yep.
you'll have a double. This time you have a double. Next time we'll go to the triple. You can email us hello@backchatpodcast.com.au for you send it.
Oh, God. We won't eat the fillet of fish. Is that what the segment is? You send it, we won't eat fillet of fishes. That is just one of the all-time worst things I've done. And it was a double.
That's okay. You all right?
I'm done. Podcast starts now. BackChat podcast, welcome.
Yep.
Did you bring change like I told you to? Because I would like my money back. Don't say I'm not included. That's like me saying you're not included in the fantasy side of things because you're not good at fantasy.
I'll send you.
I want my money.
I'll wire you the money.
I'll be following up on that. Well, wait. Last time I ever do that.
I use an
Thank you.
international bank. Sometimes it takes a while.
Thank you very much to all of our listeners, supporters, to getting us to 1,000 on YouTube. I hope you're bloody happy. That fillet of fish was just absolutely terrible. Whippersnapper. I was just thinking, if I only had something to wash it down. Well, there's only one thing that could get the taste of that out of my mouth, and that is the sweet, sweet nectar that Whippersnapper whiskey is, mate.
This is the red corn as well, the new one. It's very good.
It's 42% alcohol or something.
43, yeah.
Need every percentage of that to get that taste out of my mouth. Now, let's get to fantasy. I'm not sweating and overwhelmed. Anyway, fantasy. How are you going, Dan? If fantasy going okay?
Very good.
Well,
Now-
I mean, are you going okay personally? Because you haven't been able to spend the time on the fantasy team that's required, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know. I did make some good changes this past week.
Okay.
I got a couple of inactives out of my team, made some trades.
Yes.
Now,
Improving then?
Improving. Would just like to say that when I did try to sign up for this league, I accidentally made a team that I couldn't log back into.
Right.
So in our league, there's a team called Ben Brown and Dan are BFFs or something like that. That team, which Charlie is pulling the rankings from, is invalid. Okay, so I can't log in.
What are
and
they
change it.
coming?
It's
Please tell
still
me they're
getting
beating
points, and it's still changing every
Yeah,
week.
149th. But Be My Valentine, which is my real team,
Yes.
I'm at like 130-ish, 132.
Okay.
So I'm happy with
Okay.
that.
What about you, Charlie? You improved
I've
over there,
had a
mate?
bit of improvement this week. Jumped up 10 places.
Hey, big
Yeah.
boy.
116 I'm sitting in. I'm feeling good. Feeling ready, yeah.
Any major moves that we need to be aware of? Or?
I tell you what, one person I was glad to have in my team this week, Will Brodie.
Yeah, very good. You'd be loaded up on Freo players.
I've only got him and Luke Ryan.
And Luke Ryan. And
I don't have
Sean
Brayshaw.
Darcy. Will Brodie, of course, had 37 disposals down. I'm not sure if you knew that. We're actually joined on the podcast by Indy today. Indy's been looking after a lot of our social media. If you maybe you remember, I spoke about Indy. She's our resident cyclist here. She'll be competing for gold in the Olympics before we know it. Now, Indy, I just want to introduce you to our BackChat fans. I assume you have a fantasy team in the league that I told you to sign up as a patron. You're our 100th patron, so I assume that means you're a fantasy league member.
I feel like I'm getting thrown under the bus straight onto the pod.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we're doing. I mean, you've had a hiatus over there competing at the Nationals in the cycling. Tell us about your fantasy team.
Oh no, I did just confess that I am not in the fantasy league, but if we can figure out Dan's logins, maybe I can take over this rogue little fantasy team we've got.
I
still.
couldn't be more disappointed in you, Indy. I know you went well over at Nationals. You competed well. You did some PBs. That's great. But the fact you haven't concentrated on fantasy, I'm disappointed. My team, Will Schofield, I've gone backwards somehow. My team's very bad. For the amount of smack that I've talked, it's really disappointing with how my team's going. 79th to 83rd. But what we're all waiting for, is the hot guys. That's right. My wife, Alex, has picked those hot guys.
And they're all very hot.
Ben Brown is not in her team, Dan.
What?
13th. She's come up from 15th to 13th. She's moved just outside the top 1,000 teams in the country.
Very good.
And people that are saying, "Oh, it's Will Schofield's team in disguise." Tell you what, I've got a team. It's 79th in BackChat. It's about 20,000th in the country. Not going well. If that was my team, my wife's, I would have already laid claim. I'm making all decisions. I'm trading. I'm doing this and that. I tell you right now, Bailey Smith would not be my captain, which Will's wishes, my wife's team. That's who her captain was on the weekend. You know what he got?
What do you get?
He got 130. Absolutely schooled. He's averaging more than any player in the competition this year, and Alex has him as her fucking captain. He's the hottest guy, and he's the highest scoring guy. I think we are onto something here. The hot guys team.
I'm going to make that for next season.
There you go. There's my fantasy
There
rant
you go,
done.
captain.
I'm really disappointed with how I'm going, but congratulations, Alex. I hope you continue to pick hot guys. Now, let's have a little whip around, thanks to Whippersnapper. A bit of a look around the rest of the world in sport. We're going to stay pretty close to home. Eagles get their first win of the season. Don't know if we need to tell you this, but you heard it here first.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you didn't think West Coast was going to win. You wanted a bit of line action over at Bluebet, but
Oh, yeah.
West Coast were going to win that game fair and square, always will. Just a big win for West Coast.
Huge win. After round 2, I fully expected West Coast to go 0-23.
I tell you who was very excited about that, and we are going to do it off the top, but I got carried away with that fillet of fish. Was very lucky to meet the great man, the enigma, just the man of the moment.
The Adonis.
Dino Const, your father.
Yep.
I met Dino and Diane for that matter. Beautiful lady, Diane. Dino, your father.
Yep.
Lucky enough to meet him. And within about 12 seconds of meeting Dino, I started getting the rundown of what West Coast were doing wrong, what they needed to do to get better, and how they were to improve. This was before the game on the weekend.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
He told me exactly what needed to happen. And you know what? He was probably correct.
Spot on. Yeah, he watches very closely for a long time. And I have this vision now that's forever just burned into my brain of you sitting on my couch. Dino walks in, and literally within seconds, he had been telling you all the things that Eagles need to do to improve, and he was spot on.
He reminds me of a figurine. Now, I mean this in the nicest way, Dino. I know you listen to this. I was very impressed with your stature, Dino. It was just a beautiful brown hair. He's got luscious hair for an old fella.
He's in his 70s.
He's wearing. Is he?
Yeah.
Genuinely thought he was about 45 years old. Brown hair, white Nike athletic singlet, jeans, and runners.
Yeah.
Put that in, and smaller than you.
He knows what he's doing.
Just put and tanned and ripped. Like that is the sort of man I'm dealing with here. And Dino Const, it was an absolute pleasure to meet him.
Yep.
He was very happy with the West Coast win, I'm sure.
He was very, very happy. Got a text from my mum. Dino is very excited.
Freo Nuffies, as well as our mate Charlie, very, very happy with the win, Freo.
I just don't think they were. Because what happens is whenever West Coast win, and I've talked about this before, Fremantle fans just get upset for some reason.
Right.
Your team just won. And it literally took about half an hour. I looked on Twitter and someone was complaining about Nick Naitanui getting props over Grundy.
He's done his MCL now, Nick.
He has, yep. But your team just won and they're already upset about what West Coast are doing.
Is this true, Charlie? You got to, is that...
I feel offended here. Like, I don't think... Do I do that, Dan?
Wait,
Do you reckon?
here they go. Here you go.
Yeah.
Have a whinge about something else.
Yeah, there you go. No, it's just classic. It's just funny to watch, and I was waiting for people to already get upset about West Coast.
Do you think it's been, weeks and months and years of just living as that little brother down the road? They haven't had that chance to really blossom in a 2-team town, and maybe this year's your year.
This is the year we eclipse them.
Fremantle.
Maybe.
Yeah. You're living in the shadow now,
Who's you? Who are you talking?
The Eagles.
Oh, right.
Dan.
Thank you. I'm sorry, you're looking at me when you said that.
I can't really
certainly
see
don't.
Dan from here.
Hey, go Freo. Fremantle. Try Flagmantle. There you go, Dan. You were on roaming back chat, weren't you? You and Kat, you got all that
And I
sorted
was
out?
at the Freo GWS game.
Just make sure you look out for the roaming back chatters. After each and every game, you'll be doing that. Usually hanging around the Camfield line. Some of you
Trying
better
to
work.
sneak in.
That's where we're getting some of the better comments.
Very good stuff out there, Dan. I've been enjoying
Yeah,
it.
loving it. Absolutely.
Before we leave this whip around, thanks to Whippersnapper, just wanted to touch on the fact. How old are you?
born in 89, so 30, almost 33. Yep.
Kids?
Dose.
2? Wife?
One.
Good.
Trying to go. Yeah.
Would you consider yourself an adult?
Oh yeah. Yeah, big
You
time.
would, yes.
In terms of like
Dan Const,
technically, legally, yes, I'm an adult.
Yeah, and figuratively and actually.
Literally go to the football. There's a 19-year-old that looks like a man, and I'm like, what? How does that work? Anyways,
Well, we found out we needed some documents that needed signing between the two of us during the week, and I said, "I just
my
sign,
will.
just sign all of your everything you own to me when you pass away here on BackChat." And you did not. It wasn't a quick turnaround. I said, "What's going on over there?" And you said, "Well, I don't have a signature.
Yeah,
I don't have a signature. We're not all." We're not all athletes and celebrities and been signing autographs.
Yeah.
What's going?
So I'll tell you a story. In 2001, I was in year 7, and when you're in year 7, you're 11/12. You don't really need a signature. What are you signing? Your Dolomites account?
No.
You just don't need one.
Yes.
So this exchange student came over from Indonesia. Karina Samitha was her name.
Karina.
Still remember.
Shout out. Hello, Karina.
Yes. And she was really good at writing, I remember. Had great penmanship. And she was giving out signatures to the class. She was like, I could draw a great signature. And at that point in time, all these kids were like, I want one. That sounds great. So I got one.
You got one?
Yeah, she made
But
me
you don't have a signature. If she had done that for you, you don't have one.
So she made that for me. Hang on a sec. She made that for me in 2001. And I've been using that signature ever since.
But you haven't. You actually couldn't produce the same signature for me. You signed one page, and then the next page it was different.
That's right. So the problem is that I don't know how to do it over and over again. So I just sort of I do a D. So if you want to forge my signature, go for it. Yeah. I do a D, and then I just sort of I hope my hand does the same thing every time, but it doesn't. Like, there's no way it matches up.
It's funny you bring up Dolomites because, okay, no signature. Okay, maybe you can get away with not having a signature as an adult, as a fully grown married father of 2 adult. Maybe you can have no signature. We were doing some stuff with the bank and you had to go and verify your identity. Heads into the bank, Charlie, and the attendant there goes, "Oh, I can see you're a customer here. Fantastic. But there's a strange anomaly." So what's that? Your account you hold with us is a child's account.
Yeah.
And it's never been flicked over to the adults one. We need to update some of our processes because for the last 15 years you've been trading effectively under a Dolomite account. The one where you put your $2 in a plastic bag and it gets put on your Dolomite.
The crazy thing about
you an adult?
The crazy thing about that is that I actually used to work for Bank West processing home loans. So I was on the books as a staff member, but always
and now we find ourselves in the nation's greatest housing shortage because Dan Const
I was processing home loans. And I actually had bought a house before. Like I had a mortgage. So like I obviously had signed something at some point. But yeah, it's all right. Not everyone has a signature.
Well, we're whipped around. There we go. Whippersnapper. Thank you very much for the whiskey and for, maybe if we could upskill Dan as an adult, that'd be nice too. BackChat bets powered by Blue Bet. Look, again, I'm going to start this isn't about betting. This is about taking down Blue Bet. Mm-hmm. And look, when we first started this, we were a bit concerned about the betting, connecting with a betting company because it can be an addiction.
People don't like betting.
Yeah, and it can be an addiction. Like, I'm not going to bounce around that. So we're trying to make it as fun as possible, trying to make it a bit of a community thing. It's a bit of a piss take. We don't want you to put $100 on it, $50 on it, $5, this sort of stuff.
Yep.
Building one multi a week, we take down Blue Bet. Now, when we first started it, I thought, we're going to take down Blue Bet and we'll be like Pat McAfee and FanDuel and but we won't win a bet. Well, first week, build a $12 multi. It won.
Thanks for coming.
It won. Thanks for coming, Blue Bet. After the first week, we thought, we'll just be a bit conservative.
Yep.
Let's try and win every week. Let's try and do it all. $3.50 multi with 4 legs. So we got Charlie's putting legs in there for $1.02.
Yep.
Cheers, Charlie.
Yeah.
That misses, by the way. Charlie's bet failed us in the second week of doing this. I know, Charlie. Don't look at me like that. I know it was my bet. But we lose the second week.
Yeah.
So we bounce back for week 3.
Let's just have some fun with it.
Let's have some fun. Let's get it up a bit.
Yep.
We bloody win it again.
Win it again.
We bloody take down Blue Bet again. So if you haven't got involved, all you need to do is sign up to Blue Bet. Mm-hmm. Flick us a little, just let us know you've signed up to Blue Bet. We might be able to sort something out.
Yep. Maybe.
Maybe just like come and say g'day. Sign up to Blue Bet. Follow us on social media. BackChat __ on Instagram, on Twitter. Follow me and Dan privately. What's your Twitter handle?
Dan _Const.
Oh, man. I need to update that. Mine's Will Schofield on Twitter. You find our Blue Bet that we're going to build later in the week this week. because
Yes.
we've been having some issues with picking injured players, with picking teams that aren't even playing at different grounds, with just making a few things up on a Monday night that we haven't been quite getting right. So we're not going to tell you this week's bet. Last week's bet was a beautiful thing, born out of necessity, to be honest, because we had some fuck ups.
Yep.
So thanks to Bluebet, last week we went
They hustled last minute for us.
Nick Dacos to have 20 touches. That was Charlie's. That one at halftime. He had 20 at halftime.
Yeah, brilliant.
Maybe just get a bit more, I don't know, a bit more adventurous.
Should have gone 30.
You should have gone 30. Don't get ahead of yourself now, though, Charlie. West Coast at the line. We could have taken them for the win.
Yeah.
But we had 25 points plus for West Coast. That was absolutely free money. Josh Kennedy got added very late. We thought, why not? Let's just chuck him on for 3 goals. The blokes he had 5 touches to finish the game, but in his first 3 touches were goals.
It's very good.
The assassin.
Yeah.
He did that. And then for the win, big Danny Ricciardo, big friend of the family, even though he refuses to come on this podcast anymore. Top 10. There was blokes in the top 10 knocking out in the Grand Prix. We were home before it even started, mate. There
Sainz,
you go.
Verstappen, gone.
It's as you like. Bye-bye, Bluebet. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Watch us on socials. You can find this week's multi across those. Watch for the drop. Sign up to Bluebet. We'll get it done. Does that sound good?
Very good.
Now, last week we introduced fines. Will Schofield, the fines master of BackChat. I find a few people. Indy
You're
kind of
trigger happy with the fine giving.
Yeah, I mean, Indy got one for being too nice. Let's be honest. Like, Indy, you can have one for not having a fantasy team. There
also,
you go.
not even opening the fillet of fish box that's sitting in front of her.
Not eating fillet of fish. Not having a fantasy team. There's $2 for each. $4. Not sure if you're going to survive on that actually, Indy, because you're not getting paid to do anything that you're doing at the moment. I hope that's not too personal, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention them. Yes. AG.
Yep.
Shorten it.
Yeah.
But it's not about finding us here on the podcast. I'd like to open it up. So if you have a fine for us, you can either send it directly to fines@backchatpodcast.com.au.
Can't believe that's an email address, but it is.
Absolute beautiful thing. You can, or an easy way is to jump on the website. There's a big button you can press, big fines button.
Yep.
And send it straight there. Tell us who you're going to fine, what you're fining it for. That's on backchatpodcast.com.au. And you can name your price. But I mean, we're within reason. It's not,
Mate,
it's
50,000? Sure.
Okay,
We'll
boy.
fine them.
Are they going to pay? Maybe
Who
not.
knows? We'll set up a payment plan.
Hashtag it, BackChat fines. You just get it to us somehow. We'll read it. Yep. So, to be honest, I didn't know how this was going to go, but we've had terrific buy-in. Just like hello@backchatpodcast.com.au for you send it, you read it.
More fines than a Subi car park ranger. I don't know what you call it. Trying to make a metaphor, whatever they're called.
Okay, cool. More fines than a babysitter trying to babysit Dan's children at his home street.
Parking on my street. Okay.
Keely, she's sending a fine to you, Dan. $2. Not
What's
liking
that
ABBA.
Is that a crime?
I mean,
They're not good.
Jury's out a bit, isn't it, Charlie?
I'd say it is a crime, surely, somewhere.
Yeah, well, it is. $2 fine, and you can't challenge it, so don't.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Fine for Scully. Don't know about this, but okay. For saying West Coast hadn't won at the MCG since the Grand Final in 2018.
Yeah, you were very confident about that as well.
I was, and that was a fact. They had won since then. They'd won twice, actually, so I couldn't be more off the mark.
How much was that fine for? Because I want to double it for your confidence.
All right, that's fair enough, Dan. I'll take that on board.
Yep.
$4. It was $2 to $4.
All right.
Dan, there we go. Jermaine Jones, injured last week, subbed out. You've put him in the original multi. Now he ended up playing.
Because I knew.
But thank fuck we took him out because he didn't kick a goal.
Yeah. I don't think he even touched the ball in the forward 50.
$2 fine. Dan again, $2 fine. The renewed bet that we had that didn't get up. Chad Wingard for wearing a long sleeve jumper. Gee, that's great. I love adding that in. Chad Wingard did not play on the weekend.
Yep, he didn't.
Right.
Yep. I'll take it. Yep.
$2 fine. Brendan Decker sends in, I literally named my team my terrible bottom 20 fantasy team underscored. And you have not mentioned it once on the podcast.
We'll take that fine. That's fineable.
Yep, $2 fine. And then a $2 fine for saying West Coast v Collingwood was at the G and not at Marvel. So I said, we're backing in West Coast to beat Collingwood at the G. They didn't even play there.
Yep.
That's fair enough. We like that. Toby W. sent us a nice little one. Who gets the fine? Will Schofield. Mm-hmm. Thanks very much.
Good.
Seems like I'm going to be fined a lot considering I'm hosting this fucking podcast. So if maybe we could throw some Charlie and Indy's way and maybe Kat, that'd be appreciated.
Sammy deserves it.
I mean, Cat's not even here, so there you go. $2 fine. Cat not here. Explain why the fine is in order for telling us to put a bet on Jordan De Goey when he's suspended. So this is why we're not doing back-chat bets by Bluebet anymore on a Monday, because we've bet on Collingwood to beat West Coast at the G, not at the G. Jordan De Goey to kick goals, not even playing. Chad Wingard to play and kick goals, not even playing. Jermaine Jones injured the week. Right. Done. That's fine's over. Happy?
I'm very happy. I'm happy I got away pretty...
Charlie, if you could bring a fines jar in, that'd be great. We'll chuck the fillet of fish in there as well.
Yeah.
You send it.
We read it.
Perfect. I love the delay. It's really nice there. And Ben's email Reece Goey's grand final. Give us a bit of an update here, Dan.
Another week.
Okay. All right.
Oh, boy.
I mean, I love
don't even commit. Just...
All right, we'll do it, Ben. You know we will. We love you. Benjamin Fletcher. The Coolbinia Bombers.
My childhood team.
Wow.
Very good team. Hi all. Loving the podcast. Long-time listener here. Third-time emailer.
Okay.
Well done.
Good.
You all get me through some bloody long days of driving 700 kilometres daily.
What? Where are you driving, Benny boy?
Must be in a truck or something.
Love it.
Very good. The Jetta podcast was by far my favourite. He gave amazing insight into issues and history that I didn't know about fully, and was sickened and saddened once I read more about it. Crazy to think it wasn't that long ago. He's an amazing human and extremely inspirational. On your Jet boy. Well
Love
done.
that. Very good.
Couldn't have said about it. A few questions here. Will, how do players have to pay fines? I understand it is out of their pocket, but for an example, Taylor Walker was hit with a $20,000 fine for the racism in Sandful. Surely he wouldn't pay $20,000 in one hit. Are there payment plans?
Do you want me to just... Well, the answer
let's
as
go
we
with
go. So pretty much it gets taken out of your pre-tax pay. So if you're on $100,000 and you get a $5,000 fine for wrestling, your package goes to $95,000. And so each week, instead of getting paid, or each month, instead of getting paid the amount you would get paid, it just gets reduced by $5,000. That's how it comes out. So they would have done the 20 like that. Like, you know, Taylor Walker's probably on...
Let's say he's on $100,000 just to make it easy. He would have been put down to $80,000.
Yeah, yeah. But, you know, he wouldn't be on 100. He'd be on 600 probably. So the $20,000 probably doesn't get much of a look at, but I guess
Especially
your lifestyle adjusts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially pre-tax, which is pretty...
Yeah, maybe not pre-tax, but it's definitely... I'm not good with that stuff. That's why I'm hosting a BackChat podcast.
Also, going back a couple of weeks regarding the Rioli incident, what's your thoughts on Revolt and Merritt's comments on AFL 360? They walked a fine line, and from my view, they weren't respecting the unwritten rule. Below is the quote, no need to read out fully. So they're talking about the Willie Rioli.
No, that's right. I'll say Reddit. The priority should always be to protect the guy going for the footy, and I think that's a pretty dangerous action. That's Merritt talking on AFL 360. My understanding at the moment would be that would be a week in reference to Rioli, but it's a big call, and I'm sure that'll see a precedence going forward. Mm-hmm. What about Jack Rewaltz?
So he said, jumping off the ground, I know that he's gone to protect himself, probably has caught Rioli high.
He's caught Raoul high.
Raoul high, sorry. So Rioli's jumped and he's caught Raoul high.
Yes.
I did the pub test walking down and sort of sussed a few people out up the top here, and I thought it was a week, but clearly it's not because he did get off. Yeah,
it's a dangerous precedent to be setting in round one. I shouldn't say dangerous. It's an interesting precedent. So basically they were talking about Willie Rioli jumping off the ground, hitting Matty Rowell. Well, he's not hit high. I mean, he played the rest of the game. If he was hit high, he should have been off with the concussion rule. What are my thoughts on it all? I think I sort of gave it my thoughts on Willie Rioli. I think you've got to be able to see that sort of stuff in the game. I think you've got to have some sort of physicality. Paddy Ryder was an issue this week with a hit on Will Day from the Hawthorn Footy Club, and it's just going to get harder and harder because you've got guys like Daniel Venables and Brad Shepherd that are retiring, just to name a couple from West Coast, and that's going to continue to build across the season. But I truly believe, and speaking to Venables, both on this podcast and after the fact, he doesn't want rules to change so people don't get hit in the head. When you sign up as a player to play AFL, you know that's going to happen. You don't expect to be protected from
contact sport.
Well, you don't expect to be protected from all contact to your head, and definitely contact when you're not expecting it. You know that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You know, unexpected contact is predictable. Like, it is a 360-degree game. You have 18 opposition players running around there. The ball can move from every spot in the ground, and it's a physical game. So you're going to get hit. The Will Day one with Ryder, I mean, talking about Rioli, like I've spoken about that, but the Will Day one with Ryder, that'll be happening right now. I don't know if you can check, Charlie, what suspension Ryder was handed down, but Will Day was running through the middle. He saw Ryder. Ryder saw him. Ryder stopped. It was going towards him, stopped. Will Day, 100 miles an hour, kicked the footy and didn't have the awareness to get out of the way. Like, how many weeks did Ryder?
2 weeks ago.
So he's given him 2 weeks, and Ryder, being a taller guy, got him in the jaw with a hit. But like, yeah, I think the onus has to be both ways. Like, you have to expect contact, and it should be reasonable that Paddy Ryder puts some body on Will Day. It should be reasonable that Will Day isn't just running around having a kick and hoping for the best. Like, he has to protect himself also.
Yep.
It's a contact sport. And above all, you want to protect the head. We don't want to see head knocks. We don't want to see guys leaving the game because of a concussion. Later in life, having serious issues with brain trauma, brain damage. You've seen extreme cases of suicide due to the head knocks that players have had in elite sport. So not at all do I want that, or do we want that. But you also are playing a contact sport. This isn't – no one thinks that that's not going to happen. There's no one running around going, well, players aren't protected. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. I don't know if there's an easy win for anyone involved.
All right. So this is same email. Dan, fun fact for you. Hutchie's dad rocks a Coolbinia Bombers jacket 24/7. Doesn't matter if it's 3 degrees or 44. It'll be on his back. He's a fashion icon. Saddens me that this hasn't been a point of discussion yet. Charlie and Kat, no question.
Do you know who Hutchie is? Mark Hutchings, premiership player for West Coast.
Yeah.
His dad, we'll get him on this podcast and talk about it, but his dad comes to every training session with a deck chair, a foldable one, and he sets up on the hill by himself, watches every session, goes binoculars. He wears a bomber jacket. Did not know that that's a Coolbinia Bombers jacket. I didn't know. Do you know if Hutchings a fellow alumni?
I don't remember playing with an M Hutchings.
I'm sure you'd remember. It doesn't mean he had played with you. But
no.
He's younger than us.
No, I don't recall that.
Oh, if that's actually the case, I'll
I need to
tell
ask
you
him
what.
about that.
He did play for Coolbinia.
Oh, boy. Wow.
He also played for Girraween as well.
Yeah, we don't like that.
No.
Coolbinia.
Yeah.
There you go.
So the second most famous player to come out of the Coolbinia Bombers, Mark Hutchings, right behind Dan Const.
Wow, that's big.
Nothing for Charlie and Kat there either from Benny. No questions. Warm regards.
Dino's
mate, apparently. Okay, beautiful.
Benjamin is the one who met Dino at the servo where he works.
Yeah, and Joshy Rotham for that matter. Josh Barnstable. Nice. I feel like
very strong last name, isn't it?
in another life you may have been in charge of horses somewhere.
Yeah, a ranch man. Hi guys, big fan of the show. Would love to keep hearing more interviews with the lesser knowns of West Coast and Fremantle over the years.
Well, would you believe we have one of those coming up for you, Joshy boy?
How would you be? Who is it?
Callum Sinclair.
Yeah.
One of the greats. The Cal Sinclair Cup coming up. West Coast, Sydney. The Jeddah Cup. The Hickey Cup. The Cox Cup.
Are there more?
Cox Cup sounds funny.
Yep. I have a nerdy question for Will. Okay, so Scully played at 15 AFL venues in his career, ranging from Subiaco, which was 88 games, to Blacktown in Sydney, 1 game. He played there once.
Remember that.
What is your ranking of the best venues that you played at, 1 to 15? So taking into account things like facilities, quality of change rooms, proximity to hotel, experience with fans, and just general vibe. Thanks. Now,
I love that. I love every bit about this question.
So ranking stadiums Scully's played at. I don't know how you want to do this.
I'm going to rank them 1 to 15.
You've got the list here. Is this this looks like it's in alphabetical order, but we need you to rank it in some sort of...
Yeah. So initially, a fine, $2 fine for Charlie because he said, have you never played Gold Coast before? And in fact, it says Carrara Oval. Doesn't have the games played next to these, but I mean, it's fair enough. I'll have to go with home ground, Optus Stadium as 1, right? You got to have your home stadium as 1. Yeah, there's great other grounds, but Perth Stadium, Subiaco Oval is 1.
Is better than Optus?
No, it's not, but it's just like you ask for general vibe.
Yeah.
You ask, actually, hang on. Facilities. Okay, so it's not what I think. Facilities, quality of change rooms, proximity to hotel, experience with fans, and general vibe. Subiaco Hotel is none of those. So Subiaco is none of those. Perth Stadium, number 1. Honestly, it's best in the country. Number 2, Adelaide Oval. We love that.
Yep.
Absolutely love that. It's close to the hotel. The hotel's across the bridge. You can pretty much walk there. Alistair Clarkson got himself into some trouble walking home one day. I walked home as an emergency with Sharad Wellingham after that Port Adelaide after the siren win. We walked home just because we felt like it. Might have grabbed a sneaky beer
it
on the way
seems to be
home.
there have to be some confusion between the raceway in Adelaide and the Adelaide Oval, where Ryan Davis got dropped off accidentally.
Correct.
Once.
Absolutely.
Yep.
The horse racing precinct.
Yep.
Number 3 is Bellerive in Hobart, Charlie? I think Bellerive Oval. I've played in Launceston and Hobart. I just wonder which one's which. Cause
my two Blundstone now.
Okay, my 2 Tassie, Marara Oval, is that the other Hobart one?
Marara is in Northern Territory.
Okay, well, it's not that one. Where's the other? I mean, I've played in Launceston and Hobart, but I can't see a second one there. York Park, there it is. That's Launceston, York Park. York Park and Bellerive Oval, they go 3-4 for mine, Charlie.
Huge.
Just because Tassie was great to play and it's perfect weather for footy. Crisp.
Bit cold.
Yeah, bit cold.
Yep.
Can get windy though. But just for fan,
The Eagles suck in Tassie.
Yeah, it wasn't about winning or losing, was it? No, absolutely not. I'll tell you the worst one for fans and facilities, etc., is Blacktown. It'll genuinely a paddock with a couple of fences around it. Look, Northern Territory, which was Alice Springs. Yeah, is that where Marara Oval is?
Marara, they call it TIO.
Yeah, and that's Alice Springs. Not the best. Not the best. And that's to do with facilities.
Yep.
We had
the crowd's epic though.
Yeah, we had
so good.
We had like a refrigeration unit out the back that there were not a lot of crowd great.
Yeah.
But probably not the best place you want to go to. I'm losing track, but like Marara is backwards, that's 14. Carrara, not great. Not great at Gold Coast. We'll chuck that at 13. Docklands, quite good. Played a lot of games
as a
there
fan,
as well.
Docklands is awesome.
Docklands number 5 for mine. Football Park at Adelaide, that's about 12th. That is one of the worst you'll see. It's about 40 minutes to the hotel. You used to stay in Adelaide City and Amy's out towards the coast. About 30, 35-minute drive with traffic. Just become a real shit show out at Footy Park. So that was Amy Stadium in Adelaide before they moved into the city. The Gabba, sorry, I take all of it back. The Gabba is the worst in the entire country. The rooms for players, you need a duck to walk around in them. It is some sort of labyrinth of rooms at the Gabba. They have exposed plumbing everywhere. In the taping room specifically, there's one pipe in there that smells like chemical melted rubber, and it never leaves the rooms. You can't breathe properly in the taping rooms. They've done it deliberately. It's been like that for 15 years. Just a shocking setup. They have kind of the change rooms on one side. You got to get up a flight of 10 stairs to get to the taping room, and it's like a pyramid at the top, and then down the other end is the warm-up room. It's about as big as this table. It gets slippery, so it has to be dry at all times. So there's people with towels like doing all this up. The Gabba is an absolutely terrible place to be as a player. And the ground, I mean, no one goes to Gabba. No one goes to Brisbane games. Gabba, worst in the country. How about that?
Host of a grand final, though.
Boy, oh boy. MCG, I haven't ranked that. That's got to be up there, doesn't it? SCG.
It's got all the vibe.
SCG, poor facilities. I've lost track of ranking all these, but I mean, it's a good list to look at. Kardinia Park, I forgot about that. Yep. The away rooms at Kardinia Park, poor. Yep, poor. Even with the new stadium, they've done some developments there. What makes a bad one is like the warm-up area. You need to do a warm-up inside, and if they haven't done it, configured it right, you end up like it's like having a football, hanging all the bags up on the walls just to make sure you can do run-throughs and do handballs inside. And yeah, Kardinia Park's one of those.
I've got a question. Yes. This is about, are you finished with?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, okay. I didn't rank it properly, but it's hard.
This is about warm-ups.
Okay.
So when you're watching pre-game, often camera in the warm-ups, there's a lot of just like what looks like fake little cuddle bumps, like you're just bashing into one another. What can you talk us through the whys and? Yeah,
well, so like for a lot of my career, it's always the same warm up every game. So they try to build in a structure that is predictable, and so once you finish doing run throughs that you go to handballs and then you go to kicks, and it becomes a pattern, and it's a good preparation. but bumps was always last. Bumps and tackles. Just like any level of football. Anyone who's ever played footy, I mean, the Coolbinian Bombers would have been doing the same thing. 3 bumps on the right, 3 bumps on the left, 3 tackles. Always the last thing. And it's meant to be, you know, get a bit of body onto you, fire yourself up. Does nothing.
It just feels like players are half-arsing, like hitting each other in the shoulder and then giving.
Oh, I mean, it's interesting you saying that it feels half. I mean, like, how do you sort of, you know, what are you basing that on?
From looking on, it doesn't look like people. They're not genuinely.
I will say this is probably another question we should ask most of our guests that have played AFL. There's guys you stay away from because there's guys that try really hard and really want the body.
I feel like Jack Darling would be that sort of guy.
No, he's not. Absolutely, really? No, absolutely. I don't know why. Why do you think that?
He's a big boy. He doesn't know.
No, that's not what dictates it. It's the guys that want to really want to try. No, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, Hutchie was a big bumper.
No, he's a solid.
Yeah. No. You're still missing the point. It's not the big guys, not the strong guys. It's the guys that really want to get in under and get a bit of body on. Like genuine, like amateur footy shit. Like, yeah, get a few bumps in. Like, they really give a shit about that. Whereas, like, me personally, I would rather smash my opponent the first time I see him, shake his hand and smash into him. Rather than smash Josh Kennedy, for instance.
Are you teaming up with the same people each time?
Yes.
So
it's very.
You and another guy are like, let's just.
Who do you reckon I used to do it with? I had 2 guys. I had the same guy I used to kick with every game. Any game that we were both playing, we'd always kick with each other our whole career. Played a lot of footy with him. And then I had a specialty bumper. And just remember, I didn't like bumping and neither did they pre-game.
Mate,
one of them has been on the podcast.
I was thinking Tommy B as a bumper.
Nah, he used to like a bit of body. Too big for me. You don't want to pair up with a big guy.
Chris Masters?
No, not Masto.
I don't know.
Lewis Jetta was my bumper.
Oh, yeah.
So he'd just be out the back doing the real soft. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Perfect. I'll see you out there. And my kicker, Luke Shuey, captain. Oh. Yeah. So we would have, every single game we ever played, we'd kick together. And there'd always, because it was so routine and you kicked with the same person every time, you didn't have to speak to anyone, that you'd get in the race and you'd have this like flash of horror, like, oh shit, like Luke Shuey's not playing. Like, who am I going to kick with? So you'd get out in the field and you'd be frantically searching around for that loose that loose person. Like sometimes when it happened, like it was so late notice that I'd never find who needed to be found. And I'd be like kicking with a runner or a water boy for a little bit, like trying to figure it out because you were so ingrained in what you were doing. Yeah. Good question, Dan. I like that. That's it. You send it. We read it. You beauty. Hello at backchatpodcast.com.au if you want to send something in and you want us to read it. We're sitting down now with Callum Sinclair. I can't say his name.
Sinclair.
Callum Sinclair.
Chocolate eclair.
I know. Say that. Like, say
what?
His
Callum
full name.
Sinclair.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you know what it is? It's the Callums. You think you've done the L already.
West Coast, Sydney Cup. Sinclair Cup. Mm-hmm. Let's go. Let's get into it. All right. Before the West Coast Sydney match on the weekend, we're lucky enough to have Ryan Davis for the Ryan Davis Cup, Gold Coast v West Coast. Well, the Sydney West Coast game coming up, we could have a few guys. I mean, we've had Lewis Jetta on the podcast. Yep. Sydney West Coast. There's been a few others. Tom Hickey is over there currently, Sydney West Coast. But a proper OG of the Sydney West Coast crew, Callum Sinclair, he's a proper OG, not only of that, but of the BackChat podcast. Cal Sinclair hosted this podcast
probably before I was born.
Oh, absolutely. I think Dino would be having some trouble. 2012, 2013, he plays footy too. He's with us now. Thanks for joining us. G'day, Cal.
G'day, guys. Thanks for having me on. And it is nice, Scully, to be back on the airways together once again.
Yeah, it is, mate. Now, we were recording this podcast with a phone in between us back in that stage. Steve Thumper Bandy clipping some stuff up. We've got some questions from him a little bit later on for social media. But I wanted to start this little podcast off with a few stats off the top for people that might not know about Cal's career. Cal, do you know...
Oh, mate, don't talk about stats, mate. I don't think they'll be that glamorous.
Well, do you know what you lead the AFL in the history of the game in? You have a stat that you are league leading in AFL VFL history.
Fumbles?
No, not fumbles.
No, okay. I'm not too sure.
It's not a bad thing. It's a very impressive stat.
Is it positive?
Oh, really? It's very positive. Like, it's one of the best stats I've had right off the top. All right, here we go. Ready? You lead by a long way the fewest career games to play in wins versus 18 different teams in the AFL. So I know that's getting taking a little while to get through the head, but basically you can't do it by being a one-team player, because if you play for West Coast, for instance, for your whole career, you can't beat West Coast. Mm-hmm. So you've done it in 33 games. You've had wins against every team in the competition in 33 games.
Mate, that's a really interesting stat. I probably wouldn't have. It's still sinking in, Sco, to be honest. I'm still trying to work it out.
So in 33 games, you've beaten every club in the league. That's impressive. The next is 44.
No, it is, but I think I've been pretty lucky. Like, I've played at the Swans where, like, the majority of the time, bar a couple of years, we've won and made finals, and then the years that I was at West Coast when I played pretty consistently, we're at the top end of the ladder. So look, I don't lead many stats in the AFL, to be brutally honest, guys. But look, if that's in the I'm not sure what you call it. There's the AFL kind of stats book every year. I'm not sure if that would be one of the leading stats they talk about.
No, absolutely it is. It leads it. It leads it.
Unreal.
Kel?
Well, I'll take it, guys. But I'm sure there's probably a few stats that I probably don't want to publicise as well. So I've actually got one off the top of my head.
Go on.
Which I'm sure will come out. I think I was the last player to ever be used as a sub in the AFL, to be subbed out of the game.
You were the last standing substitute, Callum Sinclair.
I think so. And it was in the 2015 Granny, which is obviously, I'm sure we might talk about it later, but that red vest was that was the most horrible thing ever that the AFL have ever done. Like, fair enough if you're injured and you have to come off the ground, but literally the whole crowd knows you've had a shocker if you've come off and you're wearing the red vest.
Do you get to keep it? I mean, you're the last man to wear it. Surely they let you hang on to it. Surely you tuck that into the bag after the 2015 Grand Final.
Mate, I probably should have. I probably should have turned it into some sort of like historical NFT that, this was something ridiculous that the league did for a few years. Who would have thought? But looking back, Scully, I probably should have actually held on to that. It might be a funny stuff. I probably should frame it and put it in the pool room.
I think it should be called like the Callum Sinclair vest.
The Kel vest. No, I can't do it. Sinclair vest. Now I've jumped ahead. We've asked you questions, and that's against the rules here on BackChat. The first question we ever ask guests on this show. Look, we know you've been a good football player, even though you're talking yourself down. You lead the league in shortest amount of time it's taken to beat every team, so that's nothing to sneeze at. You may lead it in fumbles and out on the fools and God knows what else, but we don't care about your footballing prowess. We want to know, Cal Sinclair, what's your greatest sporting achievement not on the footy field? You've been playing AFL for a long time now, and you've done some great things. You've played in grand finals. You've got Brownlow votes. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we'll get to what you've done there. What is your greatest sporting achievement not on the footy field, Cal Sinclair?
My greatest sporting achievement not on the footy field. All right, Sky, you probably should have sent me some notice about this, but mate, to be honest, I was cheer squad captain of my school. So
we've never had that.
I was presented with a blazer at school, and it was kind of funny, kind of colourful blazer. And my job was to go to, big things like school athletic days, and there was school rowing. So, Scully, we were in the same school system. Remember how big head of the river was back in the day?
Yes.
There was school swimming, so all the school sports would come, all the students would turn up and support the school. And I was in charge of the cheer squad, so starting all the chants, getting everyone going, had the megaphone out and things like that. So I was presented with a blazer in year 12 for my service to cheering people on.
Do you remember any of the cheers?
Yes, he does. Give us one. Come on.
Yeah. Do you remember there was a school called Wesley?
Yep. And
Wesley wore purple uniforms, and we used to, whenever they used to have to row past us, past all the cheer squads, and the chant we used to do was "You wear purple uniforms, doo-dah." So I thought it was quite funny. There were some pretty inappropriate chants said as well, but I don't think they're probably appropriate for your listeners. But that would probably be my greatest sporting achievement. Maybe I did 8 musicals at school, which probably not many people know about me.
That's a sport. Sure.
Musical leading them? Like, were you like Charlie Brown and were you I don't know, the King and
Have you
the
ever
King
seen
and
a
I?
musical? Charlie Brown.
I don't know. Yeah, Charlie Brown. I was in Charlie Brown the musical in school. Just shut the fuck up, Dan. I know.
Obviously, it's not.
Fan of the opera,
I
maybe.
I was the lead in about 3 of them.
That's huge.
And so I was actually, to be honest, I was actually pretty into it, and I actually really enjoyed it. Did it in year 12, had to do a monologue in front of a lot of people as my year 12 exam. So we got given like a 7-page monologue that you had to memorize. You had to perform it in front of like a panel of judges, and that was part of your year 12 exam. So to honestly to get through that was a pretty daunting experience. So that might be another achievement in the performing arts sector, but
good.
We'll absolutely pay every bit of that. Like, that's what this is all about. I didn't have to give you pre-warning because that's what it's all about. We just want to hear your raw, honest views on what you've done in life outside of footy, and you've completely nailed it.
I'm surprised, to be honest, there wasn't basketball in there, being a tall, as a kid.
Too busy singing, mate.
Oh,
Too busy.
yeah, you're right. Well, I played a bit of junior basketball. I wasn't. Mate, I'm too short to be a basketballer. Like, these guys that play basketball these days are like, mate, 7'2" or something like that. I'd be a shrimp out there. But I did play a lot of basketball, but I was only just at the social level. I definitely wasn't any good to make any sort of teams or anything like that. But everyone seems to be an expert on NBA these days, and but I'm certainly not one of them.
Yeah, you're sitting here with one of them, Dan Const, thinks he's the world expert on NBA. He's mates with Dirk Nowitzki, apparently. Now, Cal, let's take it back a little bit. So you come out of year 12 after 10 musicals, sellouts, clearly. You start playing a bit of footy. You play with Port Melbourne. You move to Subiaco here in Perth. You don't get drafted as a 17 or 18-year-old. It takes a while for you to develop. Is that sort of how your pathway came out of school towards footy?
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's probably been spoken about a little bit, over the years. I've done a few talks and articles about it, but essentially, yeah, like, I finished school and I wasn't even in the mix, to be honest, to be drafted or anything like that. If I'm being honest, I barely made the first team at school. I was in and out of the reserves and things like that, and kind of played a couple of good games towards the end of year 12, and I got invited to go and play for the Sandringham Dragons, because when you finish school, they had about a couple of spots for 19-year-olds. I'm not sure if you remember that, but they had a couple of, every team could have 2 19-year-olds in their team. So I actually got invited to do that, and that was kind of where I thought, far out, I can actually play all right here. And I was playing in the practice matches and actually made the squad, and as a 19-year-old. So I thought, I could actually give this a crack, and got to round 4 and didn't get picked, and they just kicked me out for some reason and gave my spot to someone else. So it was that kind of moment, to be honest, Scully, was a bit of a moment where I kind of went, oh, well, I actually can do this, as heartbroken as I was, and kind of spurred me on to say kind of fuck you to a few people.
Yeah.
And so basically I literally went back to local footy, and I played local footy at my local footy club, and basically thought, well, I'll kind of try and get drafted the next year and try out for a VFL team, and went to the Collingwood VFL team and made that squad. And unfortunately, round 1 that year broke my foot, and I missed 12 months. And then Collingwood said probably weren't too interested, and then I tried out for Port Melbourne, and Port Melbourne were great. I played there for 2 seasons, and they were an AFL club. They had so many gun AFL players come back to that footy club. They would have had Shane Valenti, Sam Fleming, John Baird, a few guys that have played a lot of AFL footy. And then, from there, got an opportunity to asked to play for Subiaco in the Waffle. Probably it was a great opportunity to play the position I wanted to play. I wanted to play centre forward and in the ruck, and I thought that would give me my best chance of potentially getting drafted. I knew that West Coast and Freo were quite interested in me, but from a rookie perspective, but they probably had a few question marks. I hadn't played a lot of footy, and so I just kind of thought, well, why don't I just move to WA and get a part-time job and see if I can transfer uni and join the Subiaco Footy Club, and ended up having one of the funnest years of my life playing for Subiaco. I'd play at Subiaco on the weekends, and then Saturday night I'd make my way to the hippie club in Leaderville.
Yeah, absolutely, it would. Just a great establishment.
I literally just thought it was the best place ever. I just thought, how good's this? Like, you play footy at Subiaco, you win, you cross the road and go to the hippie club until 2 a.m. It's the best thing ever. How good's this? Why would you want to play AFL when you can play waffle?
Is my mail correct? You working in a surf shop at that time as well?
Yeah, so my next door neighbour in Melbourne, he had a pretty high up job at Quicksilver, and I said, "Oh, look, mate, I'm moving to Perth and I need a part-time job. Can you call up?" I just asked him. I said, "Oh, can you just call the Perth Quicksilver shop and see if they need someone to work?" And I had a casual position at Quicksilver in the city, just selling board shorts and ski jackets and goggles and mate, literally anything. It was quite fun.
That's very good. So after all that, surf shop attendant, probably getting a few barrels down at City Beach or Trig or something like that. If they make a surfboard big enough for you, you make your way onto the West Coast list. You get rookie listed at pick 13. In that same rookie draft, Matty Taberner was in that. So he's still going around for Fremantle. So you're among good company there. You get your way onto an AFL list in West Coast. What is that experience like? You walk onto a list with a few ruckmen on it, which I might add kind of just highlights your career as far as I can see, as being on lists with a lot of ruckmen. So you've been able to etch out a fair career, given that you haven't been that guy at any club you've been at, really. What's that like, coming onto a list as a rookie, learning under guys like Nick Naitanui, Dean Cox and co?
Mate, it was awesome. I actually, the week before the draft, I literally had, I was at Fremantle actually, and I thought I was getting drafted to Fremantle because they were the only club that spoke to me. And then literally within like a couple of days of training at Freo, Hawthorn rang me and said, "Can you come to Hawthorn? We're going to pick you up." And I said, "Oh, wow, great." So I flew down to Hawthorn, and they were like, "Oh, mate, if you're available at pick 16, we'll pick you up." And I told Freo that. I didn't want to leave Perth. And then suddenly West Coast gave me a call and said that we're going to take you at pick 12. So it was a real whirlwind of a couple of days. It all happened within a week. But in answer to your question, Scully, like coming into the footy club, I don't know. I was a little bit, I don't know what the word is, but I was pretty nervous kind of coming in because I think at the time, like Nick Nat had some pretty nasty groin injury. And I think they kind of needed a bit of ruck depth. And there was, I remember there being an article written that I was only selected kind of as an insurance policy, and it kind of rubbed me up the wrong way. And, that might have been true at the time, but I thought, like I've got an opportunity here. Like I've got to take it with everything I got. And I was kind of told at the time that when I got there that, obviously Nick Nat and Dan Cox are the two best ruckmen, probably of all time. It's going to be pretty tough to get a game. And obviously Scott Lysaght was coming through at the time there as well, who was a young and up-and-coming ruckman. And you obviously see what he's doing at Port Adelaide. He's going really, really well. So I was probably up against it. And I thought, well, all I really need, obviously Nick wasn't ready at the time. And I thought, far out, like, I'm not going to sit here and I've only got 9 months to prove myself or I'm going to get delisted. So I kind of went in there all guns blazing and kind of made sure that every waffle game I played in those practice matches that I put my best foot forward. And I was kind of told that I probably wouldn't play any AFL games at all, and kind of stuck it up them and ended up debuting round 2 that year. So I was It was awesome, mate, to be honest. Like playing with Coxie for those couple of years that he was there with me was unreal because it really fast-tracked my development. Hadn't played a lot of ruck, to be brutally honest. I was more of a key forward. And, he was unreal with his tutelage. And then playing with Nick was just there's not much you can learn off Nick because you literally just don't have the capabilities that he has. But it was an awesome. But Coxie was probably one for me that, he didn't have the biggest leap, but he was very, very skillful, very, very crafty with all of his work, and he was unreal to be trained by.
What were some of those things that you remember Dean Cox teaching you? Were there certain sort of like ruck secrets that you're like, oh my gosh, that's like because obviously he will go down as one of the best of all time. So to learn at such a young age must have been a pretty big thing, and you would have taken some sort of tools into your own belt from him.
Yeah, definitely. I actually used to watch his tape every single weekend, and the thing I'd pick up from him is just basically his work rate. And I just remember how fit and how hard he would run. So I used to have a piece of paper, and I kind of used to like draw where he would run on the ground and things like that when I wasn't playing. But no, he just had so much. He was so dynamic as a player, and I think, I wouldn't compare myself anywhere to the level of Dean Cox, but just picking up a few things, like he just really revolutionised ruck work, I reckon, that you can actually be a really skillful player. Like I remember one time at West Coast, he was taking kickouts. And probably, I'm not sure where West Coast were on the ladder at the point. They might have just been trying to try anything, but he was taking kickouts there for a few weeks. And I'm like, far out, like what's, this guy's just absolutely nuts. But I think his ability to play forward as a ruckman for me was something that I really admired, and I really kind of learned a great deal off him. And I think when Nick came into the side, he kind of had to change his role, and he started off as a forward. And I think he ended up kicking 30 goals as 30 goals one year as a backup ruckman to Nick. So the fact that he was so dynamic and he was so crafty up forward was something that I really tried to take into my game as well.
He's a coach at Sydney now. I mean, you're still playing with Sydney. I probably didn't mention that off the top. I mean, traded from West Coast to Sydney, but you're still toiling away at Sydney. What's that relationship like, given that he was a player once and comes over as a coach to Sydney? What's he like as a coach?
Yeah, look, he's really great. I think Sydney's been, no, I'm not going to talk for Dean, but I think Sydney's been a really fantastic move that he made. He's got a lot of responsibility at the footy club. His coaching journey is really going to flourish, I think. I'm not too sure what his aspirations are in terms of, potentially being a head coach one day. That's probably a question that he can ask. But, I've played with him and been coached by him for, the entirety of my career, bar maybe 1 year. And, he's grown into a fantastic coach. So he basically runs our midfield now, and I'm sure he's definitely got aspirations to further his coaching prowess. So it'd be pretty cool to watch from the sidelines to see how he goes over the next, maybe 10, 20 years, because he's definitely very passionate about the game.
We sort of jumped forward a bit straight to Sydney, but I'm curious to know about players once they get traded from one team to another. Like when you go to verse that team again, especially, I mean, Dean Cox wasn't a coach at the time when you first went over to Sydney, but are the teams coming to you with a little bit of intel? Like you were just there last year. Can you give us some hacks or some cheats on what they're going to do? Like, do they come to you for that?
I think so. Probably not in the last few years, because I think the turnover of players has been pretty significant. But I think so. I think when I kind of the first time I ever played, I could tell you a bit of a funny story. It's probably not answering your question, but I remember when I first played against the West Coast Eagles, it was at the SCG. And I think you might have lined up on me, Scurry, that day, actually.
Oh, no. I don't like this. I don't like where this is going.
No. But I got to my and I was rucking that day, and it's probably the first time I've ever rucked against, Nick Nat and my old team. And I literally go to my locker with my bag as I arrive to the ground, and I opened my locker and there was a playing card of Nick Naitanui signed by Nick Naitanui.
Wow.
And I don't think it was Nick. I don't think it was Nick, but I think it was one of the boys, and it was like, "Oh, I'm going to put my knee in your throat today." and I've like, that's the first thing that I've looked at when I've opened my locker to play West Coast, and I'm like, "Oh God, who's done this?" And to this day, I still don't know who put that in my locker. So.
Wow.
Would have you had access?
But in answer
to
your
other
question,
team?
I think in the lead up to the games, they kind of throw you to meetings and stuff like that. But I've never been the biggest footy head or massive on structures or the technical aspect of the game. I don't think you probably ask ruckman ruckman those sort of questions, to be honest, mate. But you kind of get thrown a little bit. You kind of know, I guess, how guys play. Probably some players kind of ask you, what's he like, or give the ball to Scully because he can't kick, that kind of stuff. So.
Sorry, mate, you just broke up. We didn't quite hear that last bit. Now, I learn something every week. This is what I love about BackChat. When I'm doing a bit of research and not looking for dirt, I just want to make sure I know what I'm talking about. Your old man, Alan, played for St Kilda and Fitzroy. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, so my dad played, I think he would have played probably maybe 40 games for Fitzroy. And so I actually grew up as a Fitzroy supporter.
Wow.
And then my dad, and then my, so mate, all the young guys in the team wouldn't even know who Fitzroy are. It's hilarious. Like I go, I used to go for Fitzroy, and they go, "Who's that?" And I go, "Well, Fitzroy used to be an AFL team, believe it or not." They wouldn't even know the Brisbane Bears even existed. But yeah, my father played. That's kind of how I got into footy. He played probably 40 games for the Fitzroy, and then he moved to St Kilda, and he played 2 games there, but they didn't pay him. So he ended up leaving.
Wow.
He got his envelope and there was nothing in there, and they said, "Oh, mate, we've got no money to pay you." So he's just like, "Well, I'm just going to leave."
Wow.
That's a poor way to end your AFL career.
Yeah, and to this day, he's always hated St Kilda because they never paid him. He's like, $2,000
With interest, though, that's big.
Well, we've got
exactly right. So,
we've got a couple of things to chase up after this podcast. Who's putting Nick Naitanui signed pictures in Cal Sinclair's locker? And St Kilda, where's the 2 matchies? 2 matchies, maybe a fair bit of coin there, Sinkers.
Oh no, I reckon. But he, like I said, and then from there, he actually went. My father went to Port Melbourne, and then he ended up playing a few seasons there, and he was a little bit of a cult figure there. So that's kind of how I kind of made my way to Port Melbourne.
Wow,
that's great.
That's very good. Now, again, preparing for this podcast, just some reflections on Callum Sinclair as a West Coast Eagle teammate of mine back in the day. Of course, it started with BackChat. I mean, I don't think people even knew what podcasts were when we were doing BackChat. That's how much history and memories are involved in this podcast. And Cal Sinclair was the second host after Cale Morton, another great of the podcast. We're going to have to get Cale on. Jeez, we've got some star-studded athletes that have been on this podcast. Cale Morton into Cal Sinclair. And there was a time, I'm going to jump ahead to this because I think it's worth mentioning here rather than social media. I spoke to Steve Bandy, who effectively was a poor man Dan Const. Right, you do a lot more than Steve Bandy, and I hope he's listening because it's absolutely correct. But we recorded this podcast pretty much on an iPhone, chucked it in the middle. We did have microphones at this stage. Did a full 2-hour podcast, some of our best work, no doubt.
Sure.
I believe, Cal, you can tell it from your story, but one of the microphones wasn't turned on. Not that it was faulty, it wasn't plugged in. So we've done a whole podcast. Steve Bandy's audio, great. Will Schofield, great. Cal Sinclair, not a word he said was recorded. So instead of sitting down for another 2 hours, Cal gets a call, I assume, saying, "Hey, mate, you're going to have to come to the club today." And no worries, goes in, and he had to re-record the podcast by himself, only of his own input. Am I on the right lines here, Cal? You had to do a podcast by yourself in lieu, basically.
I don't actually. I think it was more of a monologue, to be really honest. I don't actually fully remember that, but I do remember that would be something Steve Bandy would do. Like I'd say we were very, not quite the word, we're very industrious back then. I think we would always find a way. But to be brutally honest, people can laugh about that podcast. I actually thought it was good content.
Yes.
I actually thought we had really, really good chemistry between yourself, me, and Jacob Brennan. There was actually a really good mix there. And I actually think that, to be brutally honest, if we had stuck at it, and it goes back to the point you made just before, no one knew what podcasting really was back then. I actually believe if we really stuck at it, like, we probably could have just blown out. We probably should have started our own back then. We would have blown everyone out of the water. There'd be no Dylan Friends. There'd be no,
Joe Rogan.
BackChat, mate. We would have owned the market.
Yeah, Joe Rogan comes to mind. It really does. Joe Rogan experience. Don't worry about that. It's the Sinclair Schofield experience with Breno. We had Breno Bet. We're into betting markets before there was Blue Bet, mate. We're into bet. It was just
I'm just going to say,
stuff.
I'm going to be completely honest. If we did an episode where one of our mics wasn't on, I'm just culling it. I'm not coming back in. I'm going to say, hey, we need to redo the whole thing. But I'm not going to go, hey, I'm not going to sit here by myself and read lines.
And you know what? I'm going to say to you, not doing that. Fix it. This is what would have happened with Thumper. He would have said, "Hey mate, you got to come in and redo the podcast." And I said no, and he would have gone to Sinker and said, "Hey mate, Scully's not coming in. You're going to have to do your lines by yourself." So can you just imagine? You can imagine how that would have gone down. Now, other reflections of Cal Sinclair as a West Coast player. I still don't know. Look, we speak about global shortages in fuel. The prices have gone through the roof, and probably rat tests now. There's a shortage there. But I've never known a man through my entire 14-year AFL career to use more tubey grip than this man right here, Cal Sinclair, the most.
What's tubey grip?
The most tubey gripped man in history. If you had to put a line under his name.
Hey, Scully, check this out.
Is that a permanent tubey grip? Right. Tubey grip is pressurized material that when you get a knock on game day, a good knock, corky, maybe a knock to your hamstring or your calf, and you put it on to compress it, to stop the swelling.
Skin tone stuff that's stretchy? That comes in a roll, you cut it. Yeah,
Cal Sinclair used to wear this stuff from Monday to Friday, longer. If we were playing Sunday, he'd be wearing it Sunday. He'd be putting his footy jumper on with tubey grips on. He used to wear it on his wrists, on his arms, on his elbows, on his neck, on his shoulders, on his chest. Are you still? Well, I don't even have to ask the question. You've got tubey grip on right now. Is that true, Cal?
Look, Scully, I don't think I had it on my neck, my shoulders, my wrists, and things like that. Yes, I did have it on my knee, but I had it on this is a real problem, and this is the problem that I've got with the boys at Sydney as well. I don't understand why people care so much.
It's not normal.
Is that I've had my knee swells up. I've got a degenerative knee. It gets swollen. I train hard. I play hard. I get a lot of knocks. I play in the ruck every single week. I get hit on my knee. It blows up. It gets really swollen. I don't know what else to tell you people. Like, you guys, the fascination with this tubey grip and the amount of shit that I've copped about wearing it. Like,
I just love.
I don't know what to tell you guys. I wear it to try and keep the swelling down. And if I wear it on my days off, it doesn't harm anyone. It doesn't bother anyone. I still come to training and I'm still my usual self. But you need to let it go. And this goes to the boys at Sydney as well. I've had enough. And I do remember... I remember we were on a footy trip in Darwin and I was kind of, I had a couple of shockers one night. Anyway, this chant started on the dance floor one night and it was like, Mr. Tubey Grip, Mr. Tubey Grip, Mr. Tubey Grip. And I never quite found it that funny. I was just trying to do my part I was trying to do literally everything I could to stay in the side. And if that was to keep the swelling down, Scully, I'd do it.
Well, good to see that.
It sounds like you should be capitalizing on this and getting some sort of sponsorship or, like what's that called? The ambassador? Like a tubey grip ambassador.
I'll tell you what I do now to because the physios at Sydney give it to me. So I literally, it's probably a sensitive topic, but obviously the soft caps in the AFL have taken a fair hit the last few years, and we've got this big roll of it at Sydney. And every Monday I go to it and I pull out the roll, I go, cutting into your soft cap, Damo.
That's great.
And they all just shake their heads. So
I love that case in point. not only at West Coast, but this has followed him to. So I don't know. I don't think it has anything to do with Sydney and West Coast, Cal. I think it's your problem to deal with, mate. But
Part of my brand.
I'm glad. Yeah, correct. I'm glad you're looking after yourself. Now back into serious reflections. So there's a couple of funny ones for you. You work your way onto the list as a rookie player. You play a fair few games in your first season. You consolidate your role.
Consolidate.
Why did I say consolidate? Consolidate your role as a ruckman at West Coast. West Coast start playing some good footy, and Adam Simpson comes to the club 2015. You play a lot of games. You play in a grand final in 2015 against Hawthorn. What are your reflections of that period of time in your footy career?
Yeah, like I kind of, at the start of that season, there's obviously me and probably, I think, Scotty Lysaght at the time that we used to literally try and beat the shit out of each other at training to kind of secure that spot. And we obviously know how Nick Nat was a superstar, so he was obviously taking that number one spot. So I kind of saw there was a small gap in the side for someone that could kind of pinch hit for Nick when he went off the ground and contribute up forward. So I was lucky enough to kind of secure that spot for I think I played almost every game that year.
Yeah.
But mate, it was amazing. Like to be at that time, you've probably done it a few times, but to be on the top of the ladder while living in Perth and playing for the West Coast Eagles, like it's an unreal ride, and literally every week was sold out. And then when you got closer to the kind of the finals, and mate, we were dominating teams, like particularly coming at home. Like it's bloody hard to beat West Coast at home, particularly at Subiaco with the unique shape of that ground. But to play in a grand final was just like I remember playing that prelim. I literally just could not believe like when that siren went that in 7 days' time I was going to play in a grand final. And to be brutally honest, like I reckon going to that granny, like I was so excited to be out there. But at the same time, on reflections of it, which I haven't really spoken about too much, I probably didn't believe that I was probably good enough to be out there. I was kind of in real disbelief that I was kind of playing in an AFL Grand Final because 12 months before, like I'm fighting to stay on a list, and and then unfortunately, like we know the story of that day, Sco. It obviously didn't go down too well, and it was. Look, I look back on it. It's not the greatest memory, but at least you can say to people that you've played in a grand final and you know what that experience is like. Like, yeah, like it would have been fantastic to have won. I've never watched the game. I've never looked at any stats from that game. I've never looked at any articles. Never looked at anything. If it ever comes up on TV, I just turn it off. If there's ever a picture from that day, I just turn away. So it's probably a little bit scarring, but immediately kind of 2 days after that, I was kind of finding out that I was probably going to get traded to Sydney. So I kind of got over it pretty quick, to be brutally honest, because I had another focus to, sort my life out. But no, it was the whole experience was just absolutely unreal. Playing in Perth, having the whole city behind you. It was so much fun. It just would have been awesome to have just come back to Perth on that plane with a medal around your neck, but it wasn't to be. And you boys did it, 3 years later. And I'm not going to lie, sitting at home watching that, I was extremely jealous. And and obviously seeing guys, I'm really happy for guys that played in that 2015 to get some redemption and get a well-deserved medal. So I think I sent out a few texts to the boys just congratulating them, but I'm still on my frantic search for one of them.
Well, it's interesting hearing you talk about it because I went through a lot of that. 2018 was probably, gave me the ability to be able to go back on 2015 and look at it. I don't think I did before we actually won one. So I know how you feel in terms of that. Is there anything that specifically that you regret or would take back from either the preparation or game day or how you were feeling coming into that game? I know you haven't thought about it and you avoid it, but here's your chance right here on the BackChat couch.
I probably would have done a bit more work on kind of just a bit more self-belief. I kind of was, it wasn't that, I wasn't happy to be out there. I probably just would have fired myself up a little bit more. I probably felt like a bit of a passenger in that team at the time. I kind of felt like, you had Josh Kennedy and Mark LaCroix, Jack Darling in that forward line, and I was just kind of like, pinch hitting where I could and playing a little bit of role there. And then you had, Nick Naitanui, the superstar in the ruck. So, I was desperate to make an impact. But obviously coming off the bench and stuff, it was really, really difficult on the day. We got absolutely obliterated, mate, on that day. So it wasn't an ideal game to be kind of coming on and off the ground and to be subbed out of the game in a grand final. And I know we touched on it before about, we had a bit of a laugh about it before, but in all seriousness, like, I just absolutely was, blatantly humiliated, like wearing a red vest, watching your team getting absolutely smashed by a very, very good Hawthorn side. So when that siren went, I was just like, took that red vest off and just threw it, right down, because it kind of just signified that you just really had no impact at all on the game. So, I probably haven't really talked about it too much. Like I said before, coming in back to Perth, within a couple of days, there's a trade to Sydney on the table. So my mind just completely was in absolute all sorts. I just didn't know what was going on. I'm dealing with the emotion of a grand final loss and, having no impact and feeling a bit embarrassed about how I played, to be brutally honest, to then kind of, being provided with an opportunity to move to Sydney in a trade with Lewis Jetta. So, it was a bit of a whirlwind of a couple of weeks, but if there's anything that I would change, probably just my mindset, probably just be a bit more relaxed going into that week. I was severely stressed, hardly slept, was really worried about, not contributing to the team and things like that. And I was probably worried about my spot, to be honest. Like, even though I played every game, like every single week, I'd go into that team meeting just – the first thing I would do would be like, look where my magnet is, because I never ever felt comfortable kind of in the side. But I probably danced around a few topics there, but that's probably my summary of how I felt about it all.
Well, I'm just looking back at actually that that final series of 2015, and like leading up, you had some good games like leading up to that grand final. So it's interesting that you think that you didn't feel like you were sort of good enough to play in it, considering the lead up to that, because you had you played a significant amount of game before it. You had good disposals and hit outs and stuff as the second ruckman there.
Well, I knew I was going to play that final series. Like, I wasn't naive about that, but I don't know. I think when you just kind of it was probably only a couple of years prior that I was struggling to get a game in the VFL at Port Melbourne, and then you're running around the MCG with 100,000 people there. So, like I said, I probably just would have liked to have felt a bit more comfortable in the situation. So, mate, who knows? I've got a good opportunity at Sydney still, and hopefully can break in the side and maybe get back there. Who knows?
Before we move on from West Coast, I think it's important. I know you haven't dealt with it, but I feel like I'm helping you deal with it. So you don't perform how you want to on grand final day. I don't think I'd be speaking out of school if I say that. You don't have a kick. You have 3 handballs, hit outs. You're a backup ruckman, though. You don't play even half the game. You're coming off the bench to basically tap out Nick Naitanui, who has 2 kicks or 3 kicks himself. So between 2 ruckmen, you have 3 kicks on game day, and it's just not the impact you want to have. That's fine. That's happened. I mean, you can't really do much about it. Does that performance influence you leaving for Sydney? Because at the time when I was playing, like, I knew there was talk about you getting offers. You'd had a great season. You'd done a lot of things as a backup ruckman. Does the way you perform that day influence you in thinking, well, maybe I do need a fresh start or a new opportunity?
To be honest, not really. Like, when I was kind of in the mindset of when that opportunity to leave West Coast, I was in the mindset of like, mate, we've just lost a grand final. Like, I've had a shocker. I want to do everything I can to, like, I don't know, get back. I'm sure you remember, Scully, how frustrating and emotional it is after losing your grand final.
Yeah.
Like, the first thing you want to do is just like go back to preseason and try and like rectify everything. Like
Yeah.
you just want to kind of get stuck back. You want to kind of get stuck back into things. But I was pretty rational about it, mate, as the kind of the days kind of went on. Like I think both parties were pretty keen for the trade to happen. West Coast at the time, obviously had Nick Naitanui, who was obviously, we've seen the impact Nick's had, and I was never ever going to take that spot. But and then obviously Scott Lysaght, was obviously an up and coming ruckman as well, and I think he signed a pretty lengthy deal with West Coast at the time. So look, I probably just felt that after that season, I'd made a lot of improvements in my footy and kind of, cemented myself as a senior footballer at the time. And I just was a little bit worried that, with a year to go on my contract, that I didn't want to kind of fall backwards and kind of move into the waffle. As much as, I love playing waffle with all those guys, but I really wanted to advance my career and, and commercially, it was a good decision. I got a lot more security with a good contract. And to be quite frank, Lewis Jetta was coming from the Swans. Obviously, West Coast wanted Lewis Jetta and the Swans wanted me. So the actual trade was actually pretty simple. West Coast were obviously pretty comfortable with their ruck stocks at the time. And then Sydney obviously needed another ruckman and a forward and a key forward. So it was actually a pretty good fit. It probably helped dealing with the loss of the grand final and things like that. Your mind shifts to moving cities and trying to find a place to live and make new mates and all those sort of things. But it all just happened really quick. So I just thought it was a good opportunity. Perth's a tough place if you're not from Perth. I've been there 4 years and just thought, mate, it was good for a change, but it definitely wasn't anything against the footy club or the people or the grand final at all. I just think it was just a situation that you just had to make a decision on the day about what you think was best for your footy, your family, and your career at the time. And I think I made the right decision.
I've heard some stories about the sort of the off season of 2015 leading into 2016 about the way the boys sort of handled that sort of talk of the trade. What do you recall of certain chants and songs being sung at you during the off season of 2015?
Well, I'll take you back to I think I haven't actually told anyone this, but when we did the grand final parade, so just to let everyone know, I was completely oblivious that whole final series that there was even a trade on the table. So I think that both clubs kind of kept it pretty quiet. My manager didn't tell me anything. I don't think he wanted to rattle me going into a final series. But we're doing the grand final parade, and I'm sitting next to Elliot Yeo in the back of the Toyota Ute, and I'm sitting there, and a journalist at Triple M called Jay Clark, who's obviously a pretty does a fair bit of radio stuff now.
Yep.
He came up to me and he just kind of does the interview about, oh, mate, obviously, how good is it with the crowd here? Looking forward to tomorrow, yada, yada, yada. And his last question he asked me was, and have you given much consideration towards your future about moving to the Sydney Swans?
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
And I just paused. I was just like, mate, are you talking? Do you know my name's Callum Sinclair? Is there someone else you need to talk to? So I was like, I just sat there in the back of this van for about a few minutes after it, and I was like, oh, nah, I don't know anything about that. And he was like, oh, okay. And then he just walked off. And then I just kind of sat there and I just kind of thought, that's a really weird question. Like, fair enough, like if they ask you about your contract or your future or something like that, but it was about a specific club and my move to that club. So I was kind of really rattled. I just couldn't really, I was like, that's really bizarre. So the night before the game, I'm sitting there and I'm going, that's a really weird thing to say. And anyway, but I didn't think too much of it. And then Monday morning got a phone call, lost a granny, and Monday morning got a phone call from my player agent, and he just said that this opportunity is on the table. And I'm like, wow, that's quick. I know I played bad, but I've still got a year to go on my deal. Anyway, so I was in all sorts. Anyway, I was like, mate, just let me go through this kind of we had a bowls day on the Monday. I said to him, just let me get through this day with everyone, blah, blah. And you guys know what Perth's like. Mate, there's no such thing as a secret in Perth. Like, I literally turned up there, played a game of bowls, and I think we're playing a silly game closest to the ball or something like that. And when it was my turn, the whole club started singing "Cheer, cheer the red and the white." And I did not tell. And this is in front of coaches, staff, and this is like within 48 hours of losing the granny. And I'm sitting there going like, "Oh my God, like how do these people know?" And I'm like, did all you guys in on this? Like, you've known this for like months? Like, I didn't even know.
Yeah,
so,
it's the Truman Show.
That is brutal.
Anyway, so luckily people are pretty good about that stuff these days. But at the time, like, I was completely rattled and took it to heart. But mate, players, leave clubs and things like that. But I think Scoey and I think Chris Maston were one of the big leaders of that song.
Do you think?
I remember. So
I don't remember that. Sorry, I do remember you taking it to heart, and I definitely feel bad about it. Well, I felt bad about it at the time. I don't now because I mean shit happens. Different stuff happens in our life, and you've clearly landed on your feet finally. I mean, you're still playing AFL, and I'm here doing a podcast, so it's just you're doing all right for yourself.
Do you think? I mean, it might be hard or easy to think that now, but like, did that have any effect on you on the grand final day? Like, that's a bit of a grenade. Like,
we've got things to follow up. Jay Clark's that's media watch. I know Jay.
Yeah, he's
from Geelong.
That's brutal.
We're following. I don't like it either. You said it stressed you out. You're obviously thinking about it.
Honestly, I actually thought he got his wires crossed, and I honestly have no bad feelings towards him at all. It's completely fine. I'll actually look back at it as a bit of a funny story, but it all worked out for the best. But when I kind of found out, I'm like, oh, far out! Like he must have had some inside mail or something like that. So It was completely fine. It didn't really rattle me.
I'm not going to draw. Connections to these two things, but it's it just reminds me of the journo that dropped the Daniel Chick stuff right before the grand final. Pick your timings,
Rita,
when you're going to ask these sorts of questions or drop these stories. It seems that's anyways.
No, it's true. You're on the money. Now, I've got a couple more questions. You mentioned there the Lewis Jetta, Callum Sinclair trade. So we spoke to Jets here on this podcast as well, which is a good one. So you end up at Sydney. So you've come from a list with Cox, Naitanui, Lysaght, and you've been able to forge a career out of that. Add those three names to these are ruckmen that you've played with across the journey. I think there's been a few more, but guys that you were directly competing with: Tommy Derricks, Darcy Cameron, who's now at Collingwood, Joel Amati, who's still at Sydney, Sammy Naismith, Tom Hickey now, Peter Laddams, he's there now too. I mean, you've never
Mike
been...
Pike, didn't mention
Mike Pike retired the year that Sinker got there, so don't worry about Mike Pike, the Canadian.
Kurt Tippett as well is a good one.
There you go. I mean, Kurt Tippett. So, you'd speak to some guys, I don't know, a Dean Cox, I suppose, for most of his career, he's the guy. I mean, he starts with Michael Gardner, but then Cox is the guy, and you look around the league at different. You've never been in that position, really. You've had to fight for your spot. You're getting kicked back to the amateurs when you're a junior, and then you get to West Coast as a rookie, and then you get to Sydney and there's competition. Yeah, no, you're saying battler. I've been a battler. I'm a battler. Sinker, not a battler. But what's that dynamic been like as a ruckman, where every week you're competing with, these are your mates too. Not everyone's your enemy on the list, because you're competing for a spot. What's it like competing with your mates for a spot every single week that every club you've been at?
I'm probably a lot better at it now than what I used to be. It can be really difficult. The earlier part of my career, you're on 1 year deals, so you kind of feel like every single contest you lose that you're gonna they're gonna kick you out of the footy club. That's kind of the mentality that I had. But it can be quite, you have to have that level of competitiveness. I remember to get my first game at the T2 training at West Coast, mate, John Worsfold said to me, and I really got along really well with Woosha, but 2 days before my first game, he said to me and Scott Lysaght, put your shin guards on. You guys are going to ruck against each other at training. And I was like, oh my God, this is just, I'll actually backtrack. So my first year at West Coast, so the Eagles kind of had back when you had buys. I think there was a buy, and I don't think Scotty had played that well. And there was a bit of talk about me playing the following week, and Scotty getting dropped. And just by pure coincidence, both our waffle teams that week were playing each other.
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh my god!" It was a ruck off. Like it was like,
We're gonna rock off. We're gonna rock off.
Oh, and the West Australian, they had it like, this week's ruck off. Who's going to play round 3?
Gosh.
Sinclair versus Lysaght. I'll never forget it. And I was playing for Subiaco, he for East Perth, and mate, we were just going at it and things like that. And we ended up having the exact same possession count and 1 goal. Like we had 16 touches and 1 goal. It was just like it could have gone either way. But mate, it can be tough. Like the intra-club, I've always thought that intra-clubs are the most competitive times of the year. Particularly like those ones leading into round 1. So, mate, we had a ruck coach at Sydney called Stephen Talbot, and he said, if there's no claret amongst the ruckmen over the pre-season, then you're not working hard enough. So, every pre-season, there's always going to be an elbow that slips up to the nose of the other ruckman. Accident or non-accident, who knows? But it can be hard. Like you obviously when you're in a team, you can't have 4 ruckmen running around, or you'll be at the bottom of the ladder. Let's be brutally honest.
Yeah, correct. I mean, that's the other thing. It's one spot. It's not like being a backman where you've got 6, 7 with a man on the bench. Like you've got 1 if you're lucky, 2 and then the 2 isn't a ruckman. The 2's got to be able to play forward. You spend a fair chunk of time on the bench. The ruckman is like the wicketkeeper in cricket. You can't play other roles. Like that's your role. I've always admired it from afar because I've been in similar situations pretty much my whole career as well, as fighting for your spot and selection and that angst of that story you told with looking at the team sheet or the magnets on the board every time you come into the team room. I felt the same thing my whole career. It was like, especially with poor communicators at times, or if there's other things going on and the coach doesn't have a chance to speak to you, you're walking into the team room literally not knowing if you're playing or not. And some guys would never experience that in their career. These guys are the captains and All-Australians and leadership group and, which is great, high draft picks. Shut up, Siri. But you don't get to experience that as a great player. But guys like me and Sinker, you're literally walking into the room looking for your name, and then sometimes they haven't been updated, sometimes they've left a magnet on the ground, sometimes they haven't spoken to you and you're not up there, and it's a shocking feeling. Hey, Sinker, it's not a good time.
Yeah, no, it can be definitely hard. Like I probably should say, like I had a couple of years there where I was probably like really the only healthy ruckman on the Swans list. So it was, and I was quite. I played, every week for 2 or 3 years there, because obviously we had Sam Naismith, who was injured, and obviously Kurt Tippett retired, and Nan Curvis obviously left to go to Richmond. So I was kind of like the last one standing out of that group, and it was still a really, really hard thing to shake. To like, you still kind of would. I don't know what it is. Like you'd still kind of go into the room and still kind of worry about your magnet not being there, even though that you were the only ruckman there. So it's, I don't know, it's probably a bit of the story of my journey. Obviously, like as a junior, I was never always tried to make teams, and I got a lot of setbacks and things like that. So you kind of always prepare for the worst sometimes. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of players that feel like that's going. That's just the nature of it. It's a bloody competitive environment, which I'm sure that and even in key position spots, they seem to get highlighted a lot more. And you obviously played key. You were a key defender as well, and I do remember there was yourself, Eric McKenzie, Mitch Brown, and Tom Barrass at one point. That you guys can't all play in the same team. So I think the game is so like specific these days. Like even the wingers now, like you start to look at the wingers when you're at a footy club and you're like, oh, there's only 3 or 4 wingers at the footy club and he's gone down. Who comes in to replace? So I think every other position on the ground is slowly becoming, really, really kind of publicly competitive.
Yeah.
I'm going to sort of just put my psychologist hat on for a second.
Okay.
I think it might take you back to your days of being in plays and stuff. You know, like, am I going to get picked for the part? Maybe you've just carried that in your entire life, walking up to the sheet to see if you've been selected.
Oh, mate, yeah. Well, I'm still angry at my theatre teacher for putting me as a tree in the background rather than a speaking role.
That's a true story.
Tall tree. Tall tree.
But in saying that, like when we used to get selected for the first footy team, you wouldn't even know. You'd have to wait for the coach at school. You'd literally hand write it and you'd put it up on the sports notice board, and everyone at recess on a Thursday would run.
Yes.
They would run to the notice board and they would go and see their name. And they wouldn't even talk to you. Like you'd have to find the school, the footy coach at school, and be like, "Mate, where is he?" Like they wouldn't even speak to you. You just had you either in the reserves or even in the in the first 18. So it was. I remember that as soon as recess, I used to run and just go see. It's probably a childhood trauma thing, mate.
Yeah, that's right.
We're just dealing with all the big issues here.
Yeah, that's right.
Mate.
Just cry if you need to, man. It's all good.
Shit.
I want to.
I just want to say, I'm probably coming across as a bit of a weirdo and a bit of a hard done by. But mate, I've had a great time and it's great fun and I love it. So
Haven't thought that once.
I hope I'm coming across as.
Mate, you'll come across as how you come across,
Yeah.
but it is worth noting you're not coming across as a weirdo. It's just your journey, mate. It's good.
It is worth noting as well. You did have a good time, specifically in 2013 and 2017, because in 2013 you were nominated for a Goal of the Year, and 2017 Mark of the Year nomination. That's pretty big for a ruckman. You don't see ruckman on those lists.
No, well, a Goal of the Year. I've got a funny story about that. It was my second game, kicked a snap from the boundary, and you never see a ruckman kick a snap from the boundary from about 50 out. You just don't see that these days. Anyway, so I kicked it, could not. You know when you kick it's going off your boot, and you just know it's good, and you're like, oh, this is going.
Yeah,
right,
all the
this
time
is
for
great.
me. Yeah.
And the first person I turned to was Josh Hill, and Josh Hill goes, "Who the fuck are you?" Oh fuck! It was funny. Oh, I laughed my head off, and I was like, I don't know. It was a great goal.
It was a bit of a mongrel, to be honest. I watched the ball go through it. It's like sort of going everywhere, but it was a good snap.
You got to take a goal with shin pads on as well. You would have kicked it straight off the shin pad, I reckon, Sinker.
Yeah, so that was pretty funny. So I like Josh Hill. I always got along well with Hilly, and but mate, the Mark of the Year, it wasn't probably one of my better marks, but I'm sure definitely wasn't a worthy winner that one.
Oh, geez, we've had a few, have you? No worries, it wasn't one of my better marks.
Also, I would just some highlights, for you. So you've had 9 Brownlow votes in your career.
Oh,
Nothing to sneeze at.
hey,
For a ruckman,
it's very good.
it's very good. But in 2018, you had 5 Brownlow votes in the space of 2 weeks. So the majority of your Brownlow votes came from 2 weeks of your career. Do you remember those 2 rounds? Like, were they specifically special for you?
Sizzling. You must have been absolutely
Round 11 and
sizzling.
12 in 2018.
Yeah, well, if I just share my screen, I'll just share with you the highlights from those 2 I reckon that, I probably had a couple of weeks there where I think it might have been the St Kilda when I versed Tom Hickey.
One was against Carlton as well. I forgot to get the second.
Carlton the week before.
Yeah, that's right.
Far out. I had a little purple patch there for a little bit, but probably, mate, when you played long enough, the footy gods take care of you every now and then. But then sometimes they don't. Sometimes they really are non-existent.
What?
And
No, Brownlow votes.
Oh, Brownlow votes. Oh, I've had some. I haven't had 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a backman, mate. Don't worry about these ruckmen, mate. These ruckmen, I tell you what.
I know.
Just like midfielders.
I know I'm the guest, but I should mention Scully in 2015, and I've always actually thought about this.
Great.
And I honestly have always thought about this, but Scully doesn't get enough credit for his role in 2015 playing fullback, because at the time, Eric McKenzie was at the peak of his footy career and he sadly had a knee injury. And then Scully was probably playing like second, third tall defender. And then Mitch Brown literally went down like a week later. And you probably would think on paper that, oh, mate, like the defence of the West Coast Eagles is absolutely depleted. But,
I remember as a
fan. I honestly mean this, Scully. How you held up in 2015 as the literally only key defender, and we finished on top of the ladder to get to the grand final, was actually an amazing effort, and I don't think it gets spoken about enough.
There's no question there, but look, I'm just going to be silent and let you just ring my praises. I mean, you're not the first person to come and say that.
I've got another story. We were playing Sydney, and Scully, I never forget this, Scully. You said to me, I said, oh, we're playing Sydney in 2015 at Subiaco. And then you were like, all week, like, oh my God, I'm playing on Buddy Franklin. I'm the only key defender. Like, I've had a sleepless night. Like, you were nervous about it.
Nightmares,
blah, blah.
Yes.
Anyway, I remember Simo saying before the game, because you got the team sheet, all right, boys. Literally said, all right, boys, we're all good. Buddy's out. And I'll never forget looking at you, and I could literally just see your shoulders drop, and the weight of the world was off your shoulders. But I just thought it was the funniest thing from a coach to just come in and be like, you know, I'm probably putting a little bit of mayo on it, but it kind of came across like, boys, we're all good. Buddy's out.
Oh, he was like the absolute peak.
I know, but what Sinkers is saying, right? It's like, so in a team environment, everyone would have known I was playing on Buddy that week, and it would have been, you know, I mean, I played on Buddy in 2018. He kicked 8 goals. So if that gives you some sort of recognition, and that was probably getting towards the back end of his career, 2015, he's primetime Buddy.
Yeah.
Everyone would have been a bit scared going into the game that day. Scully on Buddy, it's going to be a big way to finish this game. Well, I can tell you what, I remember that too, Sinker, and never been happier in my career. Lance Franklin's not someone you want to be playing with one-on-one. I remember Simo. Simo was happier than me as well, because Simo knew as well. Simo knew the matchup was not good for West Coast Eagles. We had all sorts of things in place. Sinkers would have to be back in the hole as a loose man. It would have been a disaster. But we probably won that game as well, didn't we, Sinker?
No, we did. We actually had a really good win.
Just a couple more to finish off, mate. Two actually. One, just a statement, yes or no. Apparently, you owe a staff member at the West Coast Eagles their DVD set of Frontline. Apparently, you haven't returned it.
It's a good show.
Is that true or false?
I was lent a DVD. And there's probably young guys in my team that wouldn't even know what a DVD is, to be brutally honest. But yes, I feel horrible because when I got the flick and I had to get traded, I literally chucked everything in like a container and got it sent to Thingy. So it's probably still in a box somewhere at home. So I will get to that individual.
Very good. Well, Ben Roberts wants his DVD back. 20
afternoons.
Yeah, very good. Couple of excuse me. Couple of incidents during your career. One was Stretcher Gate. I don't know if you remember it. You were playing Brisbane for Sydney, and late in the game, you went down with a knee injury. Very late in the game, with a very close game, momentum in Brisbane's favour, and the game was halted. You were on the opposite side of the ground, not impacting the play, and the entire game got shut down to stretcher off the game, off the field. The next morning, you were photographed having a run down at the park. You completely what's going on there?
I don't think that part's true, but
so a bit of mayo.
You were at a trampoline park just jumping around.
Yeah, I was doing plyometrics.
Tell us what. Were you injured?
I had a slight hyperextension of my knee, but I don't know. I didn't feel. It just didn't feel great for about. You know what it's like when you do it when you hurt your knee a little bit. Like you just go to worst case scenario. But I didn't call for the stretcher, so people can put it on me all they want. But I didn't pull a cell phone out of my sock and say, "Oh, g'day guys, can you get the stretcher out of here?" Like they just pulled it out, but. I didn't actually get on the stretcher. Hang on. I walked it off.
Hang on, you just reminded me. I'm pretty sure you were playing for West Coast. Oh, were you playing at the time when Simon Eastow, the ruck coach, was phoned from? Were you playing for West Coast then when the phone was produced at quarter time to ring Eastie on the phone? I remember him speaking to Nick. Were you in that game?
Nah, that was the year before me, I think.
So the phone out. So quarter time of a game, Simon Eastow, who's now been coaching around the league for a little bit. He was coaching Nick Naitanui and didn't get flown over for the game. Couldn't quite get him into the coach's box. So illegally, it was sanctioned by the AFL, as in they were fined. Someone's just pulled out a mobile phone and chucked him on the phone to Nick at quarter time. So Eastie was just watching it at home on the vision. Hey, mate, this is what I've seen. This is what I've seen Sinclair doing. You might want to fix this. Anyway, that just remind me of that. Last one before we get to social media, powered by Cameo. You and Chris Judd, all good, mate? You buried the hatchet with Pinhead Gate? Don't worry about Stretcher Gate. What about Pinhead Gate? What's happened there? I mean, it came up a little bit. What's happening?
Well, this is a story. So I played the best game of my life. Like I was so happy. When I was getting interviewed by Triple M, Channel 7 after the game. I'm just on cloud 9, and I'm thinking, how good
three
is this?
votes in the Brownlow. Yeah.
I'm gonna relish in this opportunity just to enjoy it and get on to Triple M. And I think the question was something like, "Mate, well done, well done around a terrific game." And do you get nervous at birthday parties when there are balloons around? Something like that.
What?
About
Pinhead.
Because I've got a pinhead, and I just gave him one back. I just kind of said, "Oh, mate, well, mate, at least I've got a head of hair." But what do you? This is the thing about footy. It's really hard to have comebacks with those kind of people because they're absolute superstars. So no matter what you say, no one's ever going to like. You know what I mean? Like
side with you.
Thing. But I felt comfortable enough to give it back to Chris Judd because we went to the same school and we had a bit of a laugh. And I've been interviewed by Triple M a couple of times post that, and they always seem to bring it up and they share the footage, share the audio again. But all in good fun.
That's great. Love that. Now, we're going to let you go in just a minute. We finish off always with social media. I'm sure this was around in OG BackChat days. It's where the fans get to ask you the questions. It's powered by Cameo, thanks to Cameo Australia. Are you on Cameo, Sinker? You doing any shout-outs on Cameo?
I've done a few. I'm familiar with the Cameo platform. It is one of the best platforms going around. So thank you to Cameo for this segment. I'm really excited.
Very good.
Sinker knows what's up. Dan's on there actually, Sinker, if you're looking for a potential, maybe if you're looking for a gift for someone, perhaps.
Yep, I could say happy birthday, how you doing? Just confuse them, make them confused.
I'll show you my feet.
Do you pay me for that?
No, you're paying me $9.99. It's on there. Just search.
Oh boy. Okay, here we go. Short for Decker. How is shifting across the country to join another team, especially one that was a bit of rival for West Coast? What are some of the reasons players make the move? Was there fan backlash on social media? So, yeah, that rivalry that Sydney and West Coast had, what was that like going from club to club? Was that a thing for you?
Not really, to be honest. Like, I didn't really. I wasn't a high profile enough player for people to really care, in my opinion. Well, I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Like, I've been a role player my career, so I think when it's like a really high profile player and they move clubs, people seem to start, getting pretty angry and frustrated. But no, I didn't arrive there, and there wasn't too much rivalry chat about it all. But I was actually quite surprised. Like, I was really anxious about getting a lot of people hating me and having a go at me. I would have taken that lot to heart. But to be honest, a lot of the people that kind of that reached out, and even randoms on social media, are actually quite nice and quite polite about it. So I don't know. They're probably happy to see me go.
Okay, very good. Now I'm going to give Short for Decker a couple of cracks at it.
Okay, go.
Because I like this question. This is a bit
This
of
is the
humour,
second one
actually.
there?
It's a bit of humour, yeah.
Okay, so ruckmen often get bad rep as the simple men of the team, mostly from backmen like Scoey, who know they have the most elite position.
Yes, correct.
Now I see why you wanted to give him a second crack. What do ruckmen think the easiest position is?
Do you know the other spots? Do you know the other? There's other players on the team, mate. There's the ruckman that does the tap outs, and then there's everyone else.
To be honest, every ruckman I've ever met generally has a higher IQ than kind of anyone else and anyone else on the ground. But I don't know what it is. I think because we're a little bit slower with our coordination compared to you guys. in answer to your question, the easiest position on the ground would be
Sub.
halfback.
Yeah.
Halfback.
Yeah.
Halfback, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, half forward's not a great...
I would think like a forward pocket. Like if you don't do anything, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it does. You get...
Nah.
Yeah.
But this is the issue. If you're playing as a forward, you're getting tagged every single week. You're playing as a defender. You just gotta punch the ball and you get 3 votes. Pretty simple.
I'll tell you what, there's no 3 votes coming out of the backman, and you know that, Sinker. Don't be silly now. Rob_Dinsdale_. Love the underscores, Robert.
Thoughts on Coxie becoming a senior coach in the future?
Yeah, I think we touched on it earlier before. I think he'd be a really good candidate. Like, I've seen him really grow his growth from when he first started coaching to where he is now, and he gets better and better every year. He's got a really good balance of, communication with the playing group. He's obviously a bit of a character, which we all know, but I think he's got that balance really, really good. I think he definitely, I'm not too sure if he has those kind of aspirations himself, but with the way he's been coaching the last few years and the level of responsibility that he's undertaken at the Sydney Swans, I definitely wouldn't be surprised if that was something that he'd be considering. And I think he'd be a terrific candidate for sure.
You don't see too many ex-ruckmen become coaches.
It's probably fair, and there's a big reason behind that. We just spoke about it in the last question. Bray and Ethan, up-and-coming podcast here in Perth. I believe you've had a bit to do with those boys. They've got a couple of good questions here. Go with the first one.
Yeah, what was it like having the West Coast Eagles media guy act as you in the team photo?
Now, before you answer this, Cal, this is the missing frontline DVD person. So Ben Roberts played Cal Sinclair in a team photo. Correct?
Yeah, he did. I fractured my finger at training and I had to go straight for surgery. And then Ben was kind enough to fill in. It was quite unusual. I just saw a little bit of extra skin in the top region popping out. Wasn't as much definition in the arms, but kind of looked like I hadn't done a pre-season. Put it that way.
Yeah, I saw the photo. That's pretty accurate.
I had a little bit to add to that. Ben Roberts has played me in a team photo as well. So yeah, it's not uncommon. Yeah, right. Benny Roberts, he's kind of the guy that was in the staff that had a body that close enough replicated something. Yeah. I'd love to see Dan Const with his body.
What's the team photo used for? Like, is it for posters?
Everything. Posters. The signing posters, basically.
So someone at home has a poster on their wall, absolutely, or had one with Ben Roberts.
Absolutely. 2 more to go, Sinker. This is from prowse.com.au.
Who's the last bloke who you've played with that you'd take a shot 40 metres... Sorry. Who's the last bloke you've played with that you'd pick to take a shot 40 metres out?
You're right, mate. Do you want a hand reading that out? It's written beautifully. You okay?
That was a tad cryptic. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, as I'm reading it, like,
who's the last bloke you'd pick to take a shot 40 metres out from goal that you've played with throughout your career?
The last guy, Nick Smith for sure.
Yes,
he'd go out in the full.
Smitty.
He had. A fantastic player, All-Australian. Mate, he was a glove as a defender and awesome to play with. One of the most unusual ball drops I've ever seen. And I just, mate, stay in defence, Smitty. You're a fantastic defender. Do not go into the forward 50.
That's very good. All right, we'll finish it off from Bray and Ethan. Back on the podcast, lads. We enjoy some of these questions.
Do you want the second or third one?
No, the very last one, because there's a little bit of a, this is pre AFL Cal Sinclair. Media started a long time for Cal Sinclair. I believe this is the beginning.
Okay. Talk to us about the Shopping with Sinker vlog at Leadville IGA.
It's been fantastic to catch up with you guys. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Tell us about it, mate.
You've been super.
Tell us.
Look, I'm giving you guys much detail. Look, long story short, one of my close friends, Michael Genovese, is actually the Channel 9 US correspondent in Perth. Yeah. He's a close friend of mine.
Name drop.
He was starting out his journalistic journey in content. He needed something funny to do for the Subiaco Footy Club. Scully, you would know I'm always a good sport with those sort of things. I just get along. And to this day, it's found its way to the Sydney Swans Football Club. They've all seen it. Anyway, so...
What is it? What is
Anyway.
it? Tell us what it is. People
Shopping
from BackChat
Sinker.
probably doesn't
It's
say, what is
like,
it?
it's like, I don't know, it was like we went to an IGA and I was talking about what it takes to be an amazing waffle player. And we went through a shopping list and we started buying items, and it really offered no value to any sort of consumer at all.
It
So what, are
sounds-
you like
it's-
picking fruit or something? It's like, this is what I look for in
It
an
sounds
apple,
like, you know, The Price is Right, Larry and and they do the golf one and they have to name the prices of each thing.
yeah.
I reckon it sounds a bit like that. A little bit of Price is Right with Callum Sinclair.
Charlie's got it
we're
up in the
actually just
background
having a
for
bit of
us
a
to
look
have
at
a
it.
look at.
Oh, in the Subiaco Polo, you're just having a look through the deodorant section by the looks of
No,
things.
he's in the dairy.
Oh, he's in the dairy. Oh boy.
I
Can't
will say, like,
Hilo. You're a Hilo guy, apparently.
let him defend himself.
people take themselves really a lot. They take themselves too seriously, and I'm pretty sure at the footy club, you can't have everyone at a footy club all be the same. So you've got to have lunatics like myself doing completely weird stuff for the players to talk about. And, you know, I'll play that role. I've done it a few times, and, you know, I think those are the kind of people at a footy club you need. You need to have a few Fruit Loops running around.
Definitely.
I agree. Social media, thanks to Cameo. That's Cal Sinclair edition. If you're not on Cameo already, Cal, I'm going to send you some stuff. I'm going to get you over there. That's it for the episode, mate. Really appreciate your time. I know you said you're worried about how you've come across. I think a great journey in footy from a rookie-listed player, played in a grand final, etched your own career over in Sydney. You're still on a list. You got a chance to play. Sydney's right up there, Dan. I know we sold a few people on a few teams this year, but Sydney's a big chance this year. Cal's still on the list there. We appreciate your time, mate. Understand you probably got some tubey grip to chuck on those legs of yours, and you get back to recovering those knees of yours, mate.
Nah, thanks very much, guys. And, mate, Scully, fantastic to see you, mate. And congratulations on all the success post your career, mate. You've done a terrific job.
This is, this is the house that Sinkers built, really. BackChat.
No, we thank you.
We're going to give credit where credit's due. Sinkers, I know you know this, but if you want to find us on socials, BackChat _ on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can email us at hello@backchatpodcast.com.au. You can jump on the website. Sammy's done a good job on the website.
Redone. New one.
backchatpodcast.com.au. What am I missing? Oh, Reddit. Are we still doing Reddit?
It's still happening. Yeah, TikTok as well.
Yeah, TikTok. I said TikTok. Listen up, Dan. You got to listen carefully, buddy. I know I go through a bit, but
reiterating,
you just got to listen very carefully.
When you start talking, sometimes I just,
You listen very carefully. If you're not a patron, sign up, and most importantly, ticked over the 1,000 watches on YouTube. Thanks for all our subscribers. If you're not subscribed and you haven't watched this episode, it might be worth signing up, subscribing, because you get to see the tubey grip on Cal Sinclair's knee. It's bloody worth it. Bye-bye, Sinker. Been a pleasure.
Thanks, guys. Catch up.